The little girl sat alone on the concrete steps outside the gleaming corporate tower, her tiny shoulders hunched against an invisible weight. Her expensive dress couldn't hide the tremble in her small hands as she clutched a stuffed rabbit missing one eye. Security guards walked past with barely a glance. Executives hurried by their attention, locked on smartphone screens. But Jack Miller stopped. At 44, Jack's weathered face told stories his lips rarely shared. The lines around his eyes deepened as he surveyed the scene, his posture automatically shifting to a subtle defensive stance, old habits from his special forces days that had never quite faded. His worn work uniform with building maintenance stitched above the pocket contrasted sharply with the polished marble entrance of Morgan Technologies. Jack knelt slowly before the child, his movement deliberate, non-threatening. The brown paper lunch bag in his calloused hand crinkled as he opened it. "Rough day," he asked, his voice gentle, but carrying the gravelly texture of a man who'd shouted orders through sandstorms. The girl looked up, startled, her red-rimmed eyes meeting his. She didn't speak, just stared with the wariness of someone far older than her 7 years. Jack nodded as if they'd had an entire conversation. "Yeah, I get those too." He pulled out a sandwich neatly wrapped in wax paper and tore it in half. "Turkey and Swiss, not fancy, but my boy says it's the best in 3 counties." He held out the larger portion. "Seems like you could use this more than me." Behind them, the distinctive click of high heels on concrete paused. Jack's ears, trained to detect the subtlest sounds in hostile territory, registered the presence, but he kept his focus on the child. The girl's small hand reached out hesitantly and took the sandwich half. "I'm Jack," he said simply. A whispered reply, "Emma." "Nice to meet you, Emma." Jack settled beside her on the step, leaving careful space between them. "Mind if I join you for lunch?" As Emma took a small bite, Jack felt eyes boring into his back, calculating, assessing. He recognized the weight of that stare from countless missions. Someone was watching, evaluating, and making decisions that would change everything. Neither Jack nor Emma noticed the sleek black car with tinted windows across the street, or the man inside taking photographs of their exchange. Jack Miller's day began like every other at 4:38 a.m. with the soft beep of his watch alarm. He'd silence it before it completed its second chirp, a habit formed in terrain where sound meant death. His small apartment was still dark as he moved silently to his son's room, placing a gentle hand on Alex's forehead. The boy's breathing was steady tonight, no wheezing. Jack allowed himself a moment of relief before beginning his morning ritual. Coffee. Meds for Alex arranged by the breakfast plate. Lunch packed, 1 sandwich, an apple, and a protein bar. Bills sorted into 3 piles, paid, must pay, and impossible. The last pile grew taller each month, dominated by medical statements with red stamps declaring past due. Jack stared at his son's inhaler prescription refill, needed $175 without insurance. His jaw tightened as he tucked his last 20 into Alex's lunch money envelope. "Dad," Alex appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, looking smaller than his 7 years in oversized pajamas. "You're doing the worry face again." Jack's expression immediately softened. "Just thinking, buddy. How's the breathing this morning?" "Good." Alex shuffled to the table, climbing onto his chair. "Did you make another sandwich sacrifice to the lunch gods?" Jack smiled, the rare expression transforming his stern features. "What makes you say that?" "'Cause your lunch bag looks empty." Alex pointed to the paper bag containing only an apple and protein bar. "Sharp eyes, just like your old man." Jack ruffled his son's hair. "Mrs. Henderson next door made too much casserole yesterday. She's sending me with leftovers." The lie came easily, cushioned by necessity. Alex didn't need to know that Mrs. Henderson had been gone all week visiting her sister, or that Jack would work through lunch again. What mattered was the medicine, the rent, and keeping his boy's world intact after Melissa's death 3 years ago. "Get ready for school, soldier. Bus comes in 20. Jack straightened to his full height, giving a playful salute that Alex returned with giggling seriousness. As Alex dressed, Jack allowed himself one moment of weakness, leaning against the kitchen counter. Eyes closed, shoulders momentarily slumped. The photograph on the refrigerator caught his attention, himself in desert camo arm, slung around another soldier. Michael Morgan grinned back at the camera, both men younger, less burdened. Jack touched the image briefly, the familiar ache in his chest flaring. "I'm keeping my promise, Mike," he whispered, "no matter what it takes." The maintenance corridors of Morgan Technologies were a labyrinth of pipes, electrical panels, and service elevators that Jack navigated with practiced efficiency. His tool belt clinked softly against his hip as he moved through the building's skeleton, invisible to the corporate world that pulsed on the other side of the walls. It was a different kind of reconnaissance, less deadly, but requiring the same attention to detail. Jack checked his watch, 10:45 a.m. He'd skipped the employee break room, avoiding the pitying glances when others noticed his empty lunch table spot again. The encounter with the little girl on the steps had delayed his maintenance schedule, but he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Something in her eyes reminded him too much of Alex after the funeral, lost confused, trying to be brave when the world made no sense. His radio crackled. "Miller, we need you on 32. Executive bathroom leak." "Copy that. On my way." Jack adjusted his course, taking the service elevator to the executive floor, a rare venture into the company's gleaming upper realm. The 32nd floor was another world, all glass, chrome, and hushed conversations. Assistants with perfect hair moved between offices carrying tablets instead of tools. Jack kept his eyes forward, ignoring the curious glances at his uniform as he followed the discreet signs to the executive restroom. He was kneeling beside the sink, cabinet wrench in hand, when the bathroom door swung open. "I don't care what the board thinks, James. The security protocols aren't negotiable." The woman's voice was crisp, authoritative, the kind accustomed to being obeyed. Jack remained focused on his work, invisible as always to the executives. "Sarah, be reasonable. The new system is causing delays across all departments. The quarterly numbers will reflect our commitment to protecting our technology." The woman, Sarah, cut him off sharply. "After the breach last month, we can't afford another vulnerability." Jack's hands stilled momentarily. "Security breach." The company rumor mill had mentioned nothing about this. "The leak has been contained." The man, James, lowered his voice. "No one outside the executive team knows." "Someone always knows, James. That's why I've authorized additional measures." Their voices moved toward the mirror. Jack caught their reflections without looking up. The woman, elegant in a tailored suit, her dark hair pulled into a severe bun. The man, older, with silver temples and a perpetual frown. "This discussion is over," Sarah said with finality. "I expect your compliance report by end of day." As they turned to leave, Sarah's eyes flickered to Jack for the first time. He kept his focus on the pipes, playing his role perfectly, just another maintenance worker, invisible, unhearing. The bathroom door closed behind them. Jack waited 30 seconds before sitting back on his heels, processing what he'd overheard. Security breach. Contained leak. Additional measures. The information slotted into his mind like pieces of mission intelligence. His radio buzzed again. "Miller, report to HR immediately." Jack's stomach tightened. Had they realized he'd overheard? "Copy that. Finishing up here first." "Negative. Now, Miller, executive order." The HR office was as sterile and impersonal as a military briefing room. Jack sat stiffly in the visitor's chair, his tool belt and uniform out of place among the motivational posters and ergonomic furniture. The HR director, a woman with a practiced smile and cold eyes, placed a folder on the desk between them. "Mr. Miller, we've been asked to escort you to the executive floor." "Is there a problem with my work?" Jack kept his voice neutral, face unreadable. "On the contrary." The smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Morgan has specifically requested you." Jack's pulse quickened slightly. Morgan. The name still hit like shrapnel even after 5 years. Surely a coincidence. Morgan was a common name after all. "May I ask why?" "That's between you and Ms. Morgan." The HR director stood. "Please follow me." They rode the elevator in silence, ascending to the uppermost floor. Jack cataloged escape routes and security cameras out of habit, noting the increased presence of guards as they approached the CEO suite. The mahogany double doors opened to reveal a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there she was, the woman from the bathroom, standing with her back to him, staring out at the skyline. The HR director slipped away, closing the door softly behind her. "Jack Miller," the woman said without turning, "former Staff Sergeant, 5th Special Forces Group, expert in tactical operations, communications, and mechanical systems." She turned slowly. "Honorably discharged 5 years ago following the Khorasan province incident." Jack stood at parade rest, his face impassive despite the jolt that ran through him at the mention of Khorasan. "Yes, ma'am." "Do you know who I am, Mr. Miller?" She approached her desk, moving with the controlled precision of someone who measured every action. "You're Miss Morgan, the CEO." Jack maintained eye contact, revealing nothing. She studied him for a long moment. "Sarah Morgan, though my legal name is Sarah Morgan Davidson." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Jack's mind raced through implications, possibilities. Could it be, "You still don't recognize me"? It wasn't a question. She opened a drawer and removed a photograph, placing it on the desk between them. "Perhaps this will help." Jack looked down. The same photograph that hung on his refrigerator stared back at him, himself and Michael Morgan in desert camo, arms around each other's shoulders. His throat tightened. "You're Mike's wife," he said quietly. "Widow," she corrected, her voice tight. 5 years now, thanks to Horacen." The air in the room grew heavy with unspoken accusations. Jack maintained his composure through decades of discipline, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "I wasn't aware Mike had a child," he said finally. "Emma was 2 when he died." Sarah's expression hardened. Too young to remember her father. Old enough to feel his absence every day. Jack absorbed this information like a physical blow. "I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am. Mike was the best of us." "Yes, he was." Sarah moved around her desk, leaning against it. "Tell me, Mr. Miller, why did you give half your lunch to my daughter today?" The abrupt change of subject caught him off guard. She looked like she needed it more than I did. A simple act of kindness. Sarah's tone was skeptical. "Or did you know who she was?" Jack's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, ma'am, I didn't know who either of you were until this moment." Sarah studied him, searching for deception. Finding none, she straightened. "Emma ran away from her caretaker this morning. She's been doing that more frequently lately." She paused. "The security team missed her. So did her nanny. But you didn't." "I noticed things," Jack said simply. "Old habit." "Yes, I imagine it is." Sarah pressed a button on her desk. A moment later, the door opened, and Emma entered, clutching her one-eyed rabbit. She stopped short when she saw Jack, her eyes widening. "Sandwich man," she whispered. Despite everything, Jack's mouth curved slightly. "Hey there, Emma." Emma looked between Jack and her mother, uncertainty written across her small features. "Emma," Sarah said gently, "this is Mr. Miller. He used to work with your father." The little girl's expression transformed instantly. She rushed forward, stopping just before Jack, suddenly shy but vibrating with eagerness. "You knew my daddy." Jack knelt to her level the way he always did with Alex. "Yes, I did. He was my friend." The words felt inadequate for the bond forged in gunfire and blood, but they were true enough. "Was he brave?" Emma asked, her voice small but intense. "The bravest man I ever knew." Jack's voice roughened slightly. "He saved my life more than once." Sarah watched this exchange, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she spoke to her daughter. "Emma, Ms. Chen is waiting to take you to your piano lesson. We'll talk more about this later." Emma looked disappointed but nodded. "Will you be here again?" she asked Jack. Before Jack could answer, Sarah interjected. "Miller works here, Emma. Now go with Ms. Chen, please." When the door closed behind Emma, the atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Sarah's professional mask slipped, revealing raw emotion beneath. "You shouldn't have told her that," she said sharply. "Which part?" Jack straightened to his full height. "The part where her father was brave, or the part where he saved my life?" "Any of it," Sarah snapped. "Do you have any idea how difficult it's been raising a child who constantly asks about a father she never really knew? Every new detail becomes an obsession." Jack remained silent, sensing the grief beneath her anger. Sarah composed herself with visible effort. "I didn't bring you here to discuss Michael." "Then why did you bring me here, ma'am?" She returned to her desk, all business once more. "I have a proposition for you, Mr. Miller, one that would benefit us both." Jack waited, skeptical. "I've reviewed your employment file. You've been with building maintenance for 3 years despite being significantly overqualified. Your performance evaluations are excellent, but you've turned down 2 promotions." She fixed him with a penetrating gaze. "A man with your skills could earn far more elsewhere." "I need the flexibility for my son," Jack said simply. "He has severe asthma. The schedule works for doctor appointments." Sarah nodded. "Alex, age 7. Your wife Melissa died in a car accident 3 years ago." She noted his surprise. Yes, I've done my research. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Morgan? I need someone I can trust. She emphasized the word trust, as if testing its weight. Someone with your particular skill set who understands both security protocols and people. Morgan Technologies is facing challenges, internal and external. I'm a maintenance technician, not corporate security. Don't insult my intelligence, Mr. Miller. Sarah's tone sharpened. You were special forces. Your technical aptitude scores are off the charts. You're observant, resourceful, and clearly capable of discretion. And most importantly, you knew Michael. You owe him. The last three words landed like precise strikes. Jack's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I'm offering you a position as special advisor for operational integrity. You'll work directly with me, assessing our internal culture security protocols and potential vulnerabilities. Sarah slid a folder across the desk. The salary is triple what you currently make, with full medical benefits for both you and Alex. Jack didn't reach for the folder. Why me? You have a building full of executives and security professionals. Sarah's expression darkened. Because someone inside this company is trying to steal technology that could change the world, technology Michael helped develop. And I don't know who I can trust. And you trust me because of Mike? Jack asked skeptically. I trust you because you stopped for my daughter when no one else did. Sarah's voice softened fractionally. And because Michael trusted you with his life. Jack finally opened the folder. The contract inside outlined responsibilities that went far beyond consulting, intelligence gathering, personnel, assessment, security protocol development. The salary figure made his breath catch, enough to cover Alex's medical bills, enough for them to move to a better apartment, maybe even start a college fund. There's one more thing, Sarah added. Emma has become attached to the idea of you already. She needs stability, male influence. Part of this role would involve being present for her occasionally company events, certain outings. Nothing excessive. Jack looked up sharply. You want me to be some kind of substitute father figure? I want you to be a connection to her real father, Sarah corrected, and to provide the security expertise this company desperately needs. Jack closed the folder. I'll need time to consider this. You have until tomorrow morning. Sarah stood, signaling the end of the meeting. This opportunity won't come again, Mr. Miller. As Jack turned to leave, she added, and Jack, no one can know about this arrangement, not even your son. As far as anyone is concerned, you're a corporate culture consultant who impressed me with your people skills. Jack paused at the door. With all due respect, Ms. Morgan, I don't lie to my son. Then consider it classified information, Sarah countered. Something I imagine you're familiar with. Their eyes locked in silent battle. Finally, Jack gave a curt nod and left. Jack's apartment felt smaller than usual that night, the walls closing in as he sat at the kitchen table. The contract spread before him. Alex was asleep in the next room, his breathing monitored by the second-hand medical device Jack had repaired himself. The photograph of Jack and Michael stared up at him from beside the contract, a ghost from another life, another world. Jack ran a hand over his face, exhaustion seeping into his bones. His phone vibrated with a text message. Need your decision by 8 a.m. SM. Followed immediately by another. Alex's medical coverage would be retroactive to today. All existing bills covered. Jack stared at the message, anger and gratitude warring within him. She was using his son as leverage, and it was working. He moved to Alex's doorway, watching his son sleep. The boy looked so much like Melissa, it sometimes hurt to look at him, the same determined chin, the same gentle expression, even in sleep. The inhaler sat on the bedside table, nearly empty. The prescription refill form glared from the kitchen counter, a reminder of his failure to provide what his son needed most. Jack made his decision. The executive floor was quiet at 7:45 a.m., most of the staff not yet arrived. Jack wore the only suit he owned, purchased for Melissa's funeral and rarely worn since. It fit differently now, his frame leaner, harder. Sarah was already at her desk, immaculate in a charcoal suit, hair pulled back severely. She looked up as he entered, her expression giving nothing away. Your decision, Mr. Miller. Jack placed the signed contract on her desk. I have conditions. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're hardly in a position to pick Ben. My son comes first, Jack interrupted. If he has an asthma attack or medical emergency, I leave. No questions asked, no explanations needed. Sarah studied him for a long moment before nodding. Acceptable. Anything else? I need to know everything about the security breach. All of it. If I'm going to help protect this company and Emma, I can't work blind. Something flickered across Sarah's face, surprise perhaps, that he'd included her daughter in his protection mandate. Some of that information is highly sensitive. I had top secret clearance for 8 years, ma'am. I know how to handle sensitive information. Sarah considered this, then opened her laptop. Very well. James Conrad, my COO, will brief you this morning. She looked up. He doesn't know your full role here. As far as he's concerned, you're a corporate culture consultant I've brought in to address morale issues. Understood. Sarah stood and extended her hand. Welcome to Morgan Technologies, Mr. Miller. As they shook hands, Jack caught a glimpse of Emma peering through the glass wall of Sarah's office, her one-eyed rabbit clutched to her chest. The little girl offered a small, secretive wave. Jack nodded slightly in acknowledgement, already understanding that his commitment extended far beyond a contract. He was re-entering a world of secrets, danger, and obligation this time, without the protection of a uniform or the clarity of a declared enemy. Sarah followed his gaze and saw her daughter. Her expression softened momentarily. She hasn't stopped talking about you since yesterday, the sandwich man who knew her daddy. Kids fixate on strange things sometimes, Jack said quietly. It wasn't the sandwich, Sarah replied, an unexpected vulnerability in her voice. It was that you saw her when no one else did. Before Jack could respond, the office door opened and a silver-haired man entered. James Conrad, the same executive from the bathroom conversation. His eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of Jack. Sarah, the board is waiting in conference room A. His gaze flicked to Jack's suit, then to their clasped hands. I wasn't aware we had visitors this morning. Sarah released Jack's hand, her CEO persona sliding seamlessly back into place. James, this is Jack Miller, our new special advisor for corporate culture and operational integrity. He'll be working directly with me on several initiatives. James didn't bother hiding his surprise. A maintenance worker? Surely there are more qualified. Mr. Miller has a unique skill set that perfectly matches our current needs, Sarah interrupted coolly. He'll be joining the executive briefing starting today. James's smile didn't reach his eyes. How unconventional. Welcome aboard, Miller. He turned to Sarah. We should proceed. The board doesn't like to be kept waiting. As they left, James placed a proprietary hand on Sarah's lower back. She subtly shifted away from his touch, a movement so slight most would miss it. But Jack caught it along with the flash of irritation in James's eyes. Interesting, Jack thought. Very interesting. Alone in the office, Jack moved to the window surveying the city below. Somewhere out there, Alex was sitting in his second-grade classroom, breathing easier today, thanks to the inhaler Jack had been able to refill this morning with the advanced Schreier had transferred to his account. A movement reflected in the glass caught his attention. Emma had slipped into the office and now stood watching him, her rabbit dangling from one hand. Hello again, Jack said, turning. Are you going to work with my mom now? Emma asked directly. Looks that way. She nodded seriously. Good. She needs help. She's always worried. About what? Jack asked, curious about the child's perception. Emma shrugged. Everything. The bad people trying to steal her work. Uncle James being mean when he thinks no one's looking. She hugged her rabbit tighter. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. Jack knelt to her level. Your mom seems pretty tough to me. Daddy used to say that too. Emma studied him with unsettling directness. But everyone needs backup. That's what Daddy called it. People who help when things get scary. Smart man, your dad, Jack said quietly. Will you be Mom's backup? Emma asked, her voice small but intent. The question carried weight beyond the child's understanding. Jack thought of Michael, of promises made in distant desert nights, of obligations that transcended death. I'll do my best, he said finally. Emma nodded as if this settled everything. She held out her rabbit suddenly. This is Captain Hoppy. Daddy gave him to me. He's missing an eye because he was brave in a battle. Jack solemnly shook the rabbit's paw. Pleasure to meet you, Captain. Emma lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Captain Hoppy says you have sad eyes like Mommy, because you miss someone too. The observation, so simple and devastating, caught Jack off guard. Before he could respond, Sarah's assistant appeared at the door. "Emma, there you are. Your tutor is waiting." She looked apologetically at Jack. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. She slips away sometimes." Emma reluctantly allowed herself to be led out, looking back at Jack with a small wave. Jack remained kneeling for a moment longer, steadying himself against the unexpected emotional ambush from a 7-year-old with uncanny perception. Finally, he stood and straightened his tie, preparing to enter the boardroom and begin his strange new role. His phone vibrated with a text from Alex's school, Alex having mild asthma symptoms. Responding to inhaler. No need to pick up yet, but wanted to inform you. Jack texted back, confirmation, tension coiling in his chest. He needed this job. Needed the medical coverage, the stability. For Alex's sake, he had to make this work. As he approached the boardroom, he heard raised voices through the partially open door. "Can't just bring in unvetted personnel at this critical juncture," James was saying heatedly. "My company, my decision," Sarah responded coolly. "The board has already approved the position. Without knowing, you filled it with a maintenance worker with military baggage. A decorated veteran with extensive technical and security expertise," Sarah corrected, "and someone who understands loyalty." The implication hung in the air. Jack stepped back. Processing. The dynamics were clear. James resented Jack's presence, possibly feared it. Sarah was using Jack as a shield against something or someone within her own company. He was being played. The question was, by whom and to what end? Jack squared his shoulders and entered the boardroom. All conversation ceased as heads turned toward him. Sarah stood at the head of the table, her posture radiating authority despite being the youngest and only woman in the room. "Gentlemen, this is Jack Miller, our new special advisor." Her eyes met Jack's, a silent message passing between them. "He'll be leading our vulnerability assessment starting today." Vulnerability. The word choice was deliberate. Jack understood instantly that she wasn't just talking about company systems. "Mr. Miller," James said with forced cordiality, "perhaps you could share your qualifications with the board." All eyes turned to Jack expectantly. Sarah watched a subtle challenge in her gaze. Jack smiled slightly, the expression never reaching his eyes. 15-year Special Forces. Expert in identifying weaknesses, exploiting them, and eliminating threats. He let the military precision of his voice do its work. "I find what's broken before it breaks you." The room fell silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. "I look forward to working with each of you," Jack continued smoothly, "especially those of you with nothing to hide." James's knuckles whitened around his pen. Sarah's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. "Let's begin, shall we?" As the meeting commenced, Jack observed the power dynamics at play, cataloging reactions, alliances, tensions. His military training had prepared him to read people as well as battlefields, to identify threats before they materialize. And there was definitely a threat in this room. He could feel it like an approaching storm. What had he gotten himself into? More importantly, what had Sarah Morgan drawn him into? As if reading his thoughts, Sarah glanced his way, her eyes conveying a simple message: trust no one. Little did she know that had been Jack's policy for 5 long years. Since Khorasan. Since the mission that killed Michael Morgan and left Jack with nightmares that woke him gasping in the dark. Some ghosts never died. Some oaths never ended. And the silence between them concealed secrets that could destroy them all. Jack stood in the executive bathroom. Hands braced against the marble countertop, tie loosened and collar damp with sweat. The fluorescent lights highlighted the new tension lines around his eyes. 2 weeks at Morgan Technologies had aged him more than 2 years in combat zones. He splashed cold water on his face, the shock bringing momentary clarity. In the mirror, his reflection stared back, a stranger in borrowed clothes playing a dangerous game. The expensive suit Sarah had insisted on purchasing for him still felt like a costume. His phone vibrated. Alex's school again. Asthma symptoms returning. Nurse monitoring. Will update. Jack's jaw tightened. Despite the comprehensive health care now covering Alex's treatments, his son's condition seemed to be worsening. The new medication wasn't working as well as promised. The specialist appointment was still 2 weeks away. The bathroom door swung open. James Conrad entered, pausing slightly when he saw Jack. His surprise quickly masked by a practiced smile. "Miller, hiding from the board meeting." James straightened his already perfect tie, positioning himself at the adjacent sink. Taking a moment to review my notes, Jack replied evenly. James chuckled, the sound hollow. Notes? Right. His eyes met Jack's in the mirror. You know, I've been doing some note-taking of my own, about you. Jack maintained his neutral expression, though his senses shifted to high alert. Find anything interesting? Fascinating reading, actually. James turned, leaning against the counter with calculated casualness. Your military record, or rather the unredacted portions. Jack dried his hands slowly, methodically. Public record. Not all of it, James's smile thinned. Coruscant, for instance. Quite the clusterfuck from what I gather. The name hung between them like a live grenade. Jack kept his breathing steady, his expression unchanged despite the sudden roaring in his ears. I'm sure you have a point, Conrad. Just curious why Sarah would hire the man who survived the mission that killed her husband. James straightened his cuffs, especially since the details of that mission remain so mysteriously classified. Jack turned to face him directly. You'd have to ask Ms. Morgan about her hiring decisions. Oh, I have. James stepped closer, invading Jack's personal space in a deliberate power move. She's quite evasive on the subject. Makes me wonder what she knows that I don't. Or perhaps, what she doesn't know. Jack held his ground, refusing to yield an inch. If you have concerns about my qualifications, take them up with the CEO. I'm more concerned about your intentions. James's voice dropped. You appear out of nowhere, gain Sarah's trust overnight, secure a position that didn't exist before. Very convenient timing, considering our current situation. What situation would that be? Jack asked, testing. James's eyes narrowed. Playing dumb doesn't suit you, Miller. We both know what's at stake here. He straightened, adjusting his tie once more. A word of advice, whatever game you're playing, consider who might get caught in the crossfire. Like that asthmatic son of yours. The threat so casually delivered sent ice through Jack's veins. His hand twitched at his side muscle memory from years of combat seeking a weapon that wasn't there. Threatening a child, Jack said quietly, tells me everything I need to know about you, Conrad. Not a threat, an observation about vulnerability. James moved toward the door. We all have them, even Sarah Morgan. He paused, especially Sarah Morgan. After James left, Jack remained motionless, processing. Conrad knew about Alex's condition, was actively investigating Jack's military past, and had just issued what any reasonable person would interpret as a threat. The game had escalated faster than anticipated. Jack's phone vibrated again. Meeting in my office. Now. SM. Sarah's office was a fortress of glass and silence. She stood at the window, silhouetted against the city skyline, shoulders rigid with tension. When Jack entered, she didn't turn. Close the door. Jack complied, noting the security detail positioned outside, not the usual guards, but two men with the unmistakable bearing of private military contractors. Things were deteriorating rapidly. Conrad's investigating my military background, Jack said without preamble. Specifically Coruscant. I know. Sarah finally turned, her face composed but eyes alert with controlled anger. He's been digging into everything since you arrived. Your finances, your son's medical records, your communication with military contacts. Jack's pulse quickened. How do you know this? Because I've been monitoring him. Sarah moved to her desk, typing a command on her laptop. The glass walls of her office instantly frosted over, providing privacy. What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room. She turned the laptop toward him. On the screen was a detailed surveillance report, phone records, email transcripts, financial transactions, all belonging to James Conrad. You're spying on your COO. Jack stated the obvious, skimming the information with a tactician's eye. With good reason. Sarah pulled up another file, a series of photographs. 3 weeks ago, our security team identified an unauthorized data transfer from our secure servers. Project Phoenix data was being methodically copied and transmitted to an external location. Jack studied the images. They showed Conrad entering the server room after hours using what appeared to be a modified access card. You have proof it was him. Why not fire him? Have him arrested. Sarah's expression hardened. Because the evidence was mysteriously corrupted before I could act. And because James has too many allies on the board. without concrete proof moving against him would trigger a corporate civil war I might not win. So you brought me in as, what, a ringer? Someone to help you gather evidence. I brought you in because you're the only person connected to this company that I know isn't in Conrad's pocket. Sarah's composure slipped momentarily. And because Michael trusted you with his life. Jack studied her, seeing past the CEO facade to the exhausted, cornered woman beneath. There's more you're not telling me. Sarah hesitated, then reached into her desk drawer and removed a small device, a portable hard drive. Project Phoenix isn't just another corporate innovation. It's Michael's legacy. Her voice softened when speaking of her late husband. A quantum encryption system that could revolutionize data security worldwide. The military applications alone, she trailed off, making it extremely valuable to competitors or foreign governments, Jack concluded. Sarah nodded. We've detected at least 3 sophisticated hacking attempts in the past month. But the real threat isn't external. Her eyes met his. It's internal. Someone's been systematically undermining our security protocols, creating backdoors. And they're using their position on the executive team to do it. Conrad, I believe so, but I need proof that will stand up to board scrutiny and legal challenges. Sarah's fingers tightened around the hard drive. Michael died protecting similar technology in Coruscant. I won't let his final project fall into the wrong hands. The mention of Coruscant sent a familiar jolt of adrenaline through Jack's system. The memories surfaced like shrapnel working its way to the skin blood on sand. Desperate radio calls, Michael's voice cutting through gunfire. Get to the extraction point. That's an order, Miller. Jack pushed the memories down, focusing on the present threat. What exactly do you need from me? Find me proof, concrete, irrefutable evidence of Conrad's activities. Use whatever methods necessary. Sarah's expression was deadly serious. In the meantime, I need you to implement new security protocols, something Conrad won't anticipate or be able to circumvent. And my cover story, the corporate culture consultant role, maintain it. It gives you access to every department, every level of the company. Talk to people, gain their trust. Someone knows something, and Sarah slid a keycard across the desk. This gives you unrestricted access to all areas of the building. Jack picked up the card, weighing the implications. Conrad threatened my son today. Sarah's expression darkened. What did he say exactly? Jack recounted the bathroom conversation verbatim. When he finished, Sarah was silent for a long moment. I'll arrange additional security for Alex, she finally said. Private, discreet. He won't even know they're there. No, Jack's response was immediate. No surveillance on my son without my direct oversight. This isn't negotiable, Jack. Conrad has made it clear he's willing to target your family, which is exactly why I'll handle Alex's security myself. Jack's voice carried the unmistakable authority of a command officer. You focus on protecting your daughter and your company. Their eyes locked in silent confrontation, neither willing to yield. Finally, Sarah nodded once, a reluctant acknowledgement of his boundary. Have it your way, but if anything happens to Alex because of your stubbornness, nothing will happen to my son. Jack interrupted, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Now tell me everything you know about Conrad's routine, his access points, and his vulnerabilities. For the next hour, they mapped out Conrad's activities, identifying patterns and potential weaknesses. As they worked, Jack noticed Sarah repeatedly glancing at her phone. Problem, he finally asked. Emma's school called. She had another episode. Sarah's voice remained professional, but Jack caught the undertone of worry. Panic attack. 3rd one this month. Jack remembered the small, solemn girl with the one-eyed rabbit. Is she getting help? The best child psychologist money can buy. Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. They say she's struggling with abandonment issues. Apparently it's common in children who've lost a parent. The shared understanding hung between them both. Single parents trying to protect children marked by loss. Alex has nightmares, Jack offered unexpectedly. Calls out for his mother. Doesn't remember it in the morning. Sarah looked up, surprise flickering across her features at this personal disclosure. Emma sleepwalks, ends up in Michael's old office curled up in his chair. A moment of connection, brief but genuine. Then Sarah straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. I want preliminary security recommendations by tomorrow morning. And I need you to start vetting the technical team discreetly. One of them may be helping Conrad. Jack nodded, recognizing the dismissal. As he turned to leave, Sarah called after him. Jack, don't trust anyone, not even me. Verify everything. He paused at the door. Is that what Michael would have advised? A flash of something pain perhaps crossed Sarah's face. Michael was trusting to a fault. It's what got him killed. The words hit with precision, reopening old wounds. Jack left without responding, the weight of unspoken history heavy between them. The technical department of Morgan Technologies occupied the entire 15th floor, a sprawling landscape of workstations, test labs, and collaborative spaces. Jack moved through it methodically, building on his cover as the corporate culture consultant while gathering intelligence on the Project Phoenix team. He'd spent the morning conducting employee satisfaction interviews, strategically selecting staff members with access to the project's various components. The picture emerging was troubling. Multiple security protocols had been relaxed in recent months, always with executive authorization, specifically James Conrad's. Now, Jack sat across from Ellie Chen, lead encryption engineer, and according to Sarah's files, in one of Michael Morgan's original team members. Unlike the other staff who had been either nervous or dismissive of Jack's questions, Chen regarded him with open suspicion. These don't sound like culture questions, Mr. Miller, she said, tapping her stylus against her tablet. They sound like security audit questions. Jack smiled disarmingly. Company culture includes how safe people feel at work, both physically and digitally. Uh-huh. Chen wasn't buying it. And your background in building maintenance qualified you for this role. How exactly? You'd be surprised what you learn fixing things that others break, Jack replied evenly. People talk around the maintenance guy. They reveal things. Chen studied him, her sharp intelligence evident. What are you really doing here, Miller? Because Sarah Morgan doesn't hire people without a specific purpose in mind. Jack decided to take a calculated risk. What do you know about Project Phoenix's security protocols being altered? Chen's eyes widened slightly, confirmation that Jack had struck a nerve. She glanced around the open workspace, then lowered her voice. Not here. Meet me in Lab C at 7 p.m., after most people have left. Jack nodded once, keeping his expression neutral for any watching eyes. Thank you for your feedback on our company culture initiatives, Miss Chen. Your insights are valuable. As he stood to leave, Chen added in a normal volume, you might want to check with the UX team on the 12th floor. I hear they have some strong opinions about the cafeteria situation. A cover suggestion. Smart woman. Jack spent the next several hours methodically working his way through the technical department, mapping relationships, identifying potential vulnerabilities, both technical and human. He kept his questions innocuous, his manner unassuming, but his mind cataloged every reaction, every hesitation, every glance toward Conrad's office. At 6:45 p.m., his phone vibrated with a text from Sarah. Conrad called emergency executive meeting for tomorrow morning. Claims to have significant security concerns to address. Jack frowned. Conrad was accelerating his timeline, which meant Jack needed to do the same. Understood. Meeting Chen now. We'll update after. He made his way to Lab C, a secure testing facility tucked away in the northeast corner of the floor. His new access card granted him entry to the otherwise restricted area. Inside the lab hummed with the sound of advanced computing equipment. Monitors displayed lines of code and simulation models that Jack recognized as encryption algorithms. Chen was already there, her back to the door, fingers flying across a specialized keyboard. You're 3 minutes early, she said without turning around. Military habit. Something like that. Jack remained near the door, positioning himself to observe both Chen and the lab entrance. You wanted to talk privately. Chen finished her typing sequence, then spun her chair to face him. First, I need to know who you really are and why Sarah brought you in now of all times. I'm exactly who she says I am. A consultant helping identify company vulnerabilities. Bullshit. Chen's bluntness was refreshing after weeks of corporate doublespeak. You carry yourself like military. Your eyes constantly scan for threats, and you ask questions that have nothing to do with corporate culture. Jack maintained his calm exterior. Why did you agree to meet if you don't trust me? Because something's wrong with Phoenix and no one will listen. Chen's expression hardened. Security protocols I personally designed have been altered, access restrictions removed, and every time I flag it, Conrad overrides my concerns, citing operational efficiency. Now they were getting somewhere. When did this start? 3 months ago, right after the last board evaluation of the project. Chen stood and moved to a secondary workstation. Look at this. She pulled up a series of security logs highlighting specific entries. These are authorized changes to the biometric verification system, all approved by Conrad using his executive override. Jack studied the logs, noting the systematic pattern of security degradation. Have you brought this to Sarah? Tried twice. Both times my evidence mysteriously disappeared from the secure server before I could present it. Chen's frustration was evident. And now Conrad has restricted my access to certain parts of the project, parts I designed. Why would Sarah allow that? Because Sarah doesn't know. The restrictions were implemented under her digital signature, but I'm certain she didn't authorize them. Chen lowered her voice further. Someone has access to her authentication credentials. The implications were serious. If Conrad had compromised Sarah's digital signature, he could authorize virtually anything within the company's systems. Can you prove it wasn't her? Chen hesitated. Maybe. I've been running my own private audit tracking login locations and timestamps against Sarah's known schedule. There are discrepancies, but it's not conclusive. I need that data, Jack said, and I need to know why I should trust you with it. Chen crossed her arms. For all I know, you're working with Conrad. Jack weighed his options. Full disclosure would be dangerous for all involved, but Chen clearly needed more to gain her cooperation. I knew Michael Morgan, he said finally. We served together. I'm here because Sarah believes Conrad is trying to steal Phoenix Michael's final project. Chen's expression shifted surprise, giving way to cautious belief. Michael never mentioned you. He wouldn't have. Our work was classified. Chen studied him intently, seemingly searching for deception. Finally, she nodded once. Michael had a personal security protocol he built into Phoenix, something he never documented officially but showed me once. A back door only he could access. Jack tensed. A security vulnerability. No, the opposite. A hidden layer of protection that activates if someone attempts to extract the complete code base. Chen's eyes gleamed with professional pride. It segments the encryption keys, making the stolen data useless without all the fragments. And where are these fragments stored? That's just it. I don't know all the locations. Michael kept that information compartmentalized. Chen looked troubled. But someone's been trying to locate them. There have been targeted searches through Michael's old files, his archived emails. Conrad, Jack concluded, most likely, but he'd need help from someone with deep technical knowledge of the system architecture. Chen's implication was clear. There was another traitor within the technical team. Jack processed this information, fitting it into the larger picture forming in his mind. I need you to compile everything you have on these security changes, the access logs, and the search patterns through Michael's files. Can you do that without alerting Conrad? Chen nodded. I've been documenting everything on an air-gapped system, but getting this information to Sarah will be tricky. Conrad monitors all communications to her office. Don't worry about delivery. I'll handle that part. Jack moved toward the door. How quickly can you compile the data? I can have it ready by tomorrow morning. Make it tonight. Conrad's called an emergency executive meeting for tomorrow. Whatever he's planning, we need to be ahead of it. Chen looked alarmed. That doesn't give me much time. Welcome to my world, Jack said grimly. Meet me in the parking garage level B2 at 11 p.m. Come alone and make sure you're not followed. As Jack turned to leave, Chen called after him. Miller? If Conrad really is trying to steal Phoenix, he won't stop at corporate espionage. Michael believed this technology could change global security paradigms. People have killed for less. I'm counting on it, Jack replied, his hand unconsciously moving to where his sidearm would have been in his military days. Just be careful. Trust no one. Not even you, Chen asked pointedly. Jack met her gaze steadily. Especially not me. Verify everything. A ghost of a smile touched Chen's lips. Now you sound like Michael. The comparison sent an unexpected pang through Jack's chest as he left the lab. Michael Morgan's shadow seemed to grow longer with each passing day at the company, a constant reminder of Jack's failure to protect his friend in Coruscant. Some debts could never be repaid, but perhaps they could be honored. Mhm. The parking garage was deserted at 10:55 p.m., the concrete structure echoing with the distant sounds of the city. Jack had arrived 30 minutes early, sweeping the area for surveillance devices and potential ambush points. Old habits died hard. He positioned himself near a concrete pillar, back protected with clear sight lines to all approaches. His rental car was parked nearby, engine still warm from his quick trip to check on Alex. His son had been sleeping peacefully when Jack slipped into their apartment, the new asthma medication finally taking effect. Jack had stood in the doorway watching Alex's steady breathing for several precious minutes, the sight centering him amid the day's chaos. Before leaving, he double-checked the new security measures he'd installed, discreetly upgraded locks, window sensors, and a panic button, disguised as a nightlight beside Alex's bed. Now as he waited for Chen, Jack reviewed his mental map of the situation. Conrad was moving quickly, likely aware that Jack was closing in. The emergency board meeting suggested he was preparing to make his move, either securing the remaining fragments of Phoenix or orchestrating Sarah's removal as CEO. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled Jack from his thoughts. Chen emerged from the stairwell, the tablet clutched to her chest, eyes darting nervously around the dimly lit garage. Jack stepped slightly into the light, allowing her to see him without speaking. Chen hurried over to relief evident in her posture. "I was worried you wouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Did anyone follow you?" "No, I took the service elevator down to the loading dock, then doubled back through the maintenance corridors." Chen handed him the tablet. "Everything's here: security logs, access, changes, timestamp, discrepancies, plus my analysis of the search patterns through Michael's archive files." Jack took the device quickly, verifying its contents. "This is exactly what we need. Good work." "There's something else." Chen glanced around again before continuing. "I found a hidden subroutine in the Phoenix architecture. Something even I wasn't aware of until I started digging deeper." Jack looked up sharply. "What kind of subroutine?" "It's like a digital dead man switch. If certain parameters are met, I can't fully determine, the entire system initiates a shutdown sequence and sends alerts to multiple external servers." Chen's expression was troubled. "The code signature matches Michael's personal style, but it's not documented anywhere in the official architecture." "A fail-safe," Jack murmured. "Something he built in case the technology fell into the wrong hands." Chen nodded. "And there's more. The subroutine contains encrypted coordinates, physical locations. 5 of them. The fragment locations," Jack concluded. "He built a map into the system itself." "Exactly. But accessing those coordinates requires an encryption key I don't have." Chen looked frustrated. "Without it, they're just meaningless strings of numbers." Jack's mind raced with implications. If Michael had built a failsafe into Phoenix complete with a hidden map to the encryption fragments, he must have anticipated the technology being compromised, which meant he'd also have ensured someone could access that failsafe if needed. "Thank you, Ellie. This may be exactly what we need." Jack secured the tablet inside his jacket. "Go home now, different route than you came, and don't come in tomorrow morning." Chen frowned. "But the board meeting?" "Take a sick day, trust me on this." Jack's tone left no room for argument. "And delete any copies of this data from your personal devices." "Already done. That tablet contains the only copy." Chen hesitated. "Be careful, Miller. Conrad has more resources than you might expect for a COO." Jack nodded grimly. "I'm counting on it." After Chen departed, Jack remained in the garage for several more minutes processing the new information. The tablet contained enough evidence to at least raise serious questions about Conrad's activities, but Jack suspected it wouldn't be enough to remove him entirely. Conrad had clearly been preparing for this confrontation, building allies on the board and creating plausible deniability for his actions. What they needed was irrefutable proof of his intent to steal and sell Phoenix technology. And for that, Jack needed to get inside Conrad's private files. He was about to leave when his phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Behind you." Jack's combat instincts kicked in instantly. He dropped and rolled toward the nearest vehicle, drawing the tactical folding knife he kept in his ankle holster, the only weapon he allowed himself to carry in civilian life. The garage remained silent, no movement visible in any direction. Jack stayed low, scanning methodically, controlling his breathing, as he'd been trained to do in ambush situations. His phone vibrated again. "NW corner. Black sedan. Get in." Jack spotted the vehicle, a nondescript black Audi with tinted windows parked in the shadows. The driver's identity was obscured, but something about the silhouette seemed familiar. Against every instinct, Jack approached cautiously, keeping the parked cars between himself and the sedan for cover. When he was within 20 feet, the driver's window lowered slightly. "You've gotten sloppy, Miller. I counted 3 ways I could have taken you down before you even knew I was here." The voice froze Jack in his tracks, gruff, authoritative, with the distinctive cadence of military command. "Colonel Hayes," Jack moved closer, disbelief evident in his voice. The window lowered further, revealing the stern features of Colonel Richard Hayes, Jack's former commanding officer in the Special Forces. The man who had led the Khorasan mission 5 years ago. "Get in before someone sees us together. We need to talk." Jack hesitated, his mind racing. Hayes had retired from active service shortly after Khorasan amid whispers of classified operations gone wrong. His appearance now at this precise moment couldn't be coincidence. "How did you find me?" "I never lost you, son." Hayes's expression remained impassive. "Now get in the damn car. Time's short and you're in deeper shit than you realize." Jack's instincts warred with his curiosity. Hayes had been Michael's commanding officer too, had recruited them both for the ill-fated Khorasan operation. If anyone knew the full story of what had happened there, it was Hayes. Decision made, Jack circled to the passenger side and got in, keeping his knife accessible. "Smart," Hayes commented, noticing Jack's hand position. "Never fully trust anyone, not even old COs." The interior of the car was immaculate, smelling faintly of leather and gun oil. Hayes looked older than Jack remembered, more gray in his close-cropped hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But the air of command remained unchanged. "What are you doing here, Colonel?" Jack asked directly. "Same thing as you, protecting Michael Morgan's legacy." Hayes kept his eyes forward and scanning the garage entrances, and trying to keep you alive long enough to finish what we started in Khorasan. The mention of the mission sent the familiar jolt of adrenaline through Jack's system. Khorasan was a disaster, a failed operation that got good men killed. "Is that what you think happened?" Hayes's voice remained neutral, but his knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel. "That we failed. Michael died, 3 team members died. The target escaped with the prototype. By any military definition, that's a failure." Hayes was silent for a long moment. "What if I told you Khorasan wasn't about the target or the prototype at all? That the real mission objective was accomplished precisely as planned?" Jack stared at his former commander, processing the implications. "You're saying we were a diversion, expendable. I'm saying not everything is as it appears, especially when it comes to operations like Phoenix." Hayes finally turned to face him. "Conrad isn't just a corporate thief, Miller. He's connected to the same people who were waiting for us in Khorasan. People who've been after this technology for years." "How do you know about Conrad, about Phoenix?" Jack demanded, suspicion mounting. "Because I've been watching Morgan Technologies since Michael's death, waiting for them to make their move." Hayes pulled out a secure phone displaying a series of surveillance photos, James Conrad meeting with several men in various locations. These 2 are former intelligence operatives now working private sector. This one is a known broker for technological black markets. All connected to a group that would very much like to own the global encryption standards for the next decade. Jack studied the images, recognizing the implications. "Does Sarah know about this?" "Sarah Morgan knows her company is under threat. She doesn't know the full scope." Hayes put the phone away. "Just like she doesn't know the full truth about her husband's death." The statement hung between them like a physical presence. Jack felt his throat tighten. "What truth?" Hayes's expression grew grave. "Michael didn't die because the mission failed, Jack. He died because it succeeded. He found something in that compound, something beyond the prototype we were sent to secure. Something worth dying to protect." "The Phoenix fragments," Jack murmured, pieces clicking into place. Hayes looked surprised for the first time. "You know about the fragments?" "Just found out tonight. Michael built a failsafe into the system, a way to distribute and secure the encryption keys if the main technology was compromised." Hayes nodded slowly. "Michael was always thinking 3 steps ahead. He knew the risks when he volunteered for Khorasan, knew he might not make it back." "Then why send him at all?" Jack demanded, old anger resurging. "Why not extract the prototype another way?" Because Michael was the only one who could verify what we were really after. Hayes's voice dropped. The prototype was bait, Jack. We knew it had been compromised. What we needed was confirmation of who was waiting on the other end of that transaction. Jack processed this revelation, memories of that night reconstructing themselves with new context. The unexpected resistance they'd encountered. The way Michael had insisted on securing the prototype himself, sending Jack to escort the wounded team members to extraction. You sacrificed him. The accusation fell between them heavy with 5 years of guilt and regret. He sacrificed himself, Hayes corrected firmly. Michael knew exactly what he was walking into. He made his choice to protect the future of the technology he believed in and to identify the network trying to steal it. Does Sarah know any of this? Hayes shook his head. The operation was classified at the highest levels. As far as she knows, Michael died securing a military prototype. Nothing more. Jack leaned back against the seat, the weight of these revelations pressing on him. Why tell me this now? Because history is about to repeat itself. Hayes reached into his jacket and removed a small flash drive. Conrad has been systematically hunting for the Phoenix fragments. He's found 3 already. The last 2 are still secure, but not for long. How do you know this? Because I've been tracking their recovery operations. Hayes handed Jack the drive. This contains surveillance on Conrad's team, financial transfers to known operatives, and communication intercepts. Enough to prove he's working for the same network we encountered in Coruscant. Jack took the drive, turning it over in his hand. Why not take this directly to Sarah? Because I don't know who else in her company is compromised, and the infiltration goes deeper than Conrad. Hayes checked his watch. Tomorrow's board meeting isn't just about Phoenix. It's about removing Sarah from power. Conrad has gathered enough support to force a vote of no confidence. Jack felt a chill of recognition. The classic corporate coup: eliminate the leadership, create chaos, extract valuable assets during the confusion. I need to warn her. You need to secure the remaining fragments first, Hayes countered. If Sarah is removed tomorrow, Conrad will have full access to the company's systems within hours. The fragments are the priority. Where are they? Hayes's expression turned grim. One is with me. The final fragment. He hesitated. Michael entrusted it to you, Jack. You just don't know it yet. Jack stared at his former commander. That's impossible. I would know if... Would you? Hayes interrupted. Think Miller. What did Michael give you before the mission? Something personal, something you'd never part with. Jack's mind raced through his last interactions with Michael before Coruscant. The planning sessions, equipment checks, final briefing, and then a moment in the barracks, just the 2 of them. Hold on to this for me, would you, Lucky Charm? Give it back when we return. The small metal compass, weathered antique with an inscription inside the lid that Jack had never been able to fully decipher. He'd kept it all these years, carrying it in his pocket as a reminder of his fallen friend, of his failure to bring Michael home. The compass, Jack whispered, realization dawning. Hayes nodded. Inside the casing, microdot technology, the final encryption key hidden in plain sight. Jack reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the familiar shape of the compass he carried daily. A talisman of guilt that had unknowingly been a vital piece of Michael's legacy all along. Conrad doesn't know about this. Not yet, but he's getting closer. The people he works for are patient, methodical. They've spent 5 years piecing together what happened in Coruscant, tracking the fragmented technology. Hayes started the car. You need to get that compass and my fragment to Sarah before the board meeting tomorrow. It's her only chance of maintaining control. And then what? Then you finish what Michael started. Hayes put the car in drive. You protect Phoenix from falling into the wrong hands at all costs. The implication was clear, just as Michael had done in Coruscant. I'll drop you at your vehicle. Go directly to Sarah. Share nothing over electronic channels. Trust no one inside that building except her. Hayes paused. And Jack, watch out for the girl. Jack frowned. Emma Yvie, because Conrad knows her importance to Sarah and to the system. What do you mean? Hayes's expression darkened. Michael built redundancies into everything he created, including access protocols. If something happens to Sarah, Emma becomes the secondary access point. Jack concluded, horror dawning. He'd use a child. These people have no limits when billions in technology and global influence are at stake. Hayes pulled up beside Jack's rental car. Go now and remember, trust no one. Verify everything. Jack exited the vehicle, mind racing with implications. As Hayes's car disappeared up the exit ramp, Jack pulled out his phone to call Sarah. No signal. He tried again. Nothing. A flash of movement in his peripheral vision was his only warning. Jack ducked instinctively as something whistled past his ear, striking the concrete pillar behind him with a metallic ping. Sniper. Jack dropped and rolled beneath a nearby SUV, adrenaline flooding his system. His combat training took over mind cataloging assets, threats, and escape routes in milliseconds. 2 more shots pinged off the concrete nearby, suppressed high-velocity rounds. Professional. Jack crawled rapidly between vehicles, staying low, mentally mapping the shooter's position based on bullet trajectories. Northeast corner elevated position, likely the roof of the adjacent parking structure. His phone vibrated in his pocket, signal returned. Jack pulled it out with one hand while continuing to move toward his vehicle, keeping cars between himself and the shooter's position. A text from Sarah: don't come to the office. Conrad knows. Emma and I are secure. Meet at the fallback location. The fallback location, a protocol they'd established during their first week working together. A small cabin outside the city owned through a shell company, off the grid and secure. Another shot closer this time. The shooter was adjusting, tracking his movement. Jack needed to break the line of sight. He spotted a fire alarm on a nearby pillar. Without hesitation, Jack surged forward in a combat roll, came up beside the pillar, and smashed the alarm glass with his elbow. Sirens blared throughout the garage. Sprinklers activated, filling the space with artificial rain and obscuring visibility. Jack used the chaos to sprint to his vehicle, keeping low and using parked cars as cover. 3 more shots followed him, one grazing his suit jacket as he dove into the driver's seat. Jack gunned the engine tires, squealing on the wet concrete as he accelerated toward the exit ramp. In the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of dark figures emerging from a stairwell, at least 3 men in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Not just a sniper team, a full hit squad. Conrad had escalated beyond corporate espionage to outright elimination. Jack swerved to avoid another shot, then accelerated up the ramp and onto the street. His military training took over, executing evasive driving maneuvers through the late-night traffic, constantly checking for pursuit. After 15 minutes of countermeasures and route changes, Jack was reasonably confident he'd lost any immediate tail. He pulled into an all-night diner parking lot, positioning his vehicle for quick exit while maintaining visibility of all approaches. Jack checked himself for injuries, nothing serious, just a graze on his arm where a bullet had torn his jacket. More concerning was the situation itself. Conrad had deployed a professional hit team with military-grade equipment and training. This was no longer just corporate theft. It was an organized operation with significant resources. He needed to reach Sarah and Emma, ensure their safety, then secure the Phoenix fragments before Conrad could acquire them. But first he needed to check on Alex. Jack dialed Mrs. Abernathy, his elderly neighbor, who watched Alex when Jack worked late. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy with sleep. Jack, is everything all right? Yes, Mrs. Abernathy, sorry to call so late. Just checking on Alex. How's his breathing? Steady as can be. Checked on him not 20 minutes ago. That new medicine seems to be working wonders. Relief flooded through Jack. Thank you. I'm running late. Might not make it home tonight. Would you mind? Say no more, dear. I'll keep an eye on him till morning. You know I don't sleep much anyway. Jack thanked her again before hanging up. At least Alex was safe for now. The security upgrades Jack had installed should deter any casual attempt to reach his son, and Conrad's team would be focused on Jack himself at the moment. Next, Jack texted Sarah, headed to fallback. ETA 90 minutes. Confirmed status. Her reply came seconds later. Confirmed secure. Bring the compass. Jack froze, staring at the message. He had never mentioned the compass to Sarah. Never discussed it with anyone except Hayes just minutes ago. The implications hit like a physical blow. Either Hayes had contacted Sarah directly after their meeting, unlikely given his warnings about electronic communications, or Sarah's phone was compromised. Or Hayes himself wasn't who he claimed to be. Jack's mind raced through possibilities, each more troubling than the last. If Hayes was compromised, then everything he'd revealed about Coruscant, about the fragments, about Michael's true mission could be manipulation. But the hit team had been very real. The evidence of Conrad's corruption seemed legitimate. And most tellingly, someone knew about the compass, Michael's compass, that Jack had carried for 5 years. One thing was certain, Jack couldn't risk the fallback location until he knew who to trust. He needed independent verification, and there was only one person who might have the answers he sought. Jack started the car and headed toward the suburbs, toward the address he'd memorized from Sarah's files, Ellie Chen's home. If anyone could verify the technical details of Hayes' claims about Phoenix, it would be the woman who had helped Michael build it. As he drove, Jack's hand closed around the compass in his pocket, the metal warm from proximity to his body. For 5 years, he'd carried it as a reminder of his greatest failure. Now it might be the key to fulfilling his final promise to Michael Morgan. If anything happens to me, Jack, take care of them, Sarah Emma. They're everything. Words spoken the night before Coruscant. Words Jack had interpreted as the standard request of a soldier facing danger. Only now did he understand their true weight. The hit team Hayes revelations, Conrad's coup, the Phoenix fragments, all pieces of a puzzle 5 years in the making. And at the center of it all, a little girl with a one-eyed rabbit carrying a legacy she didn't even understand. Jack checked his rearview mirror, scanning for pursuit as he accelerated toward the suburbs. The game had changed, the stakes had escalated, and time was running out. In his pocket, Michael's compass seemed to pulse with urgency, a silent witness to promises made and kept to oaths sworn in blood and honor. The road ahead disappeared into darkness, but Jack drove forward without hesitation. Some debts could only be paid in full. The suburban street was silent as Jack pulled up half a block from Ellie Chen's modest two-story home. 2:17 a.m. glowed from the dashboard clock, the hour when the human body reached its lowest ebb. Jack ignored his own fatigue, the burning graze on his arm, the weight of Michael's compass in his pocket. Focus narrowed to the mission parameters: verify information, assess threats, protect assets. Something felt wrong. The street was too quiet, the houses too dark. Jack killed the engine and coasted to a stop, preserving night vision as he scanned for surveillance or tactical positions. Nothing obvious, but instinct screamed caution. He approached on foot, using the shadows between streetlights, moving from cover to cover with the economy of motion that had kept him alive through 3 combat tours. Chen's house appeared normal, modest landscaping, porch light on, no vehicles in the driveway. But the front door stood slightly ajar, a thin slice of darkness visible between door and frame. Jack drew his folding knife, the only weapon he had. Heart rate elevated, but controlled, breathing shallow and silent. He circled to the rear of the house, noting a kitchen window with the screen removed. Entry point. The back door yielded to gentle pressure hinges, mercifully silent. Jack slipped inside, pausing to orient. Kitchen, dark. The faint smell of coffee and something else metallic, familiar from countless battlefields. Blood. He moved through the house room by room, clearing each with methodical precision. Living room empty, study undisturbed. At the foot of the stairs, the first sign of struggle, a toppled side table, a framed photograph face down on the carpet. Jack ascended slowly, testing each step before committing his weight knife ready. At the top landing, a streak of darkness against the pale carpet. Blood trail leading to the master bedroom. The door was closed. Jack positioned himself to the side, turned the handle slowly, and pushed the door open with the toe of his shoe. "Took you long enough," came a strained voice from within. Jack pivoted into the doorway, knife raised, to find Ellie Chen propped against her bed, a makeshift compression bandage on her shoulder, pistol gripped in her right hand. The weapon was pointed steadily at Jack's chest. "Prove you're not with them," she demanded, voice tight with pain. Jack slowly lowered his knife. "If I were you'd already be dead." Chen's laugh was brittle, not very reassuring. The gun remained trained on him. "Tell me something only the real Jack Miller would know. You have a subroutine in Phoenix, something Michael built. A dead man's switch that contains encrypted coordinates to the fragments." Jack kept his voice level. "You told me tonight in the garage." The gun wavered slightly, then lowered. "They came 20 minutes after I got home. 3 men, professional. Military hardware, but not military discipline." Chen winced as she shifted. "Sloppy entry. I heard them before they reached the bedroom." Jack moved forward, assessing her wound. "You're shot. Grazed, through and through on the shoulder." Chen nodded toward a first aid kit open on the bed. Was about to stitch it myself when I heard you downstairs. They're gone. For now, Chen grimaced, grabbed my laptop tablet, kept asking about Phoenix fragments. When I didn't answer fast enough, they decided a bullet might loosen my tongue. Jack knelt beside her, examining the wound. The bleeding had slowed, but not stopped. This needs medical attention. No hospitals, Chen said firmly. They'll be watching. Just help me bandage it properly. As Jack cleaned and dressed the wound, Chen explained what had happened. The attackers had been precise, knowledgeable about Phoenix, and specifically interested in any information about the fragments' locations. They'd mentioned Hayes by name. Colonel Hayes, you know him? Jack asked, securing the bandage. Never met him. But Michael mentioned him, his former CO. Chen studied Jack's expression. They asked if Hayes had contacted me, seemed very interested in his whereabouts. Jack's mind raced, processing this new information. If Conrad's team was hunting Hayes, it suggested the colonel wasn't working with them, but it didn't guarantee his trustworthiness either. We need to move, Jack said, helping Chen to her feet. They might return or have surveillance watching the house. Where to? If Conrad has compromised Sarah's security, nowhere at Morgan Technologies is safe. Jack considered their options. The fallback location was potentially compromised. His apartment would put Alex at risk. Any hotel would require ID that could be traced. I know a place, he said finally. But first tell me everything you know about the Phoenix fragments and the dead man's switch. Chen leaned against the wall, gathering strength. Michael designed Phoenix with multiple fail-safes. The core technology is useless without 5 specific encryption keys, each hidden separately. The dead man's switch activates if unauthorized extraction is attempted, erasing the central architecture and alerting the key holders. How does the switch know the difference between authorized and unauthorized access? Biometric verification, DNA-based. Chen met his eyes. Michael's DNA, and after him Sarah's and Emma's. The pieces connected in Jack's mind. That's why Hayes said Emma was in danger. If Conrad can't get Sarah's biometric access, he'd use Emma's. Chen's expression hardened. Michael never anticipated someone would threaten his daughter. He built the backup access for her protection, not as a vulnerability. Do you know where any of the fragments are located? Chen shook her head. Michael kept that compartmentalized, said it was safer if no one person knew all 5 locations. She studied Jack intently. But you know something. I can see it in your face. Jack hesitated, then removed the compass from his pocket. Hayes believes this contains one of the fragments. Michael gave it to me before Horasan. Chen's eyes widened. She reached for the compass with her good hand, examining it carefully. The casing, it could conceal a microdot or chip. She looked up at Jack. And Hayes has another fragment. So he claims. Jack took back the compass. But until I can verify his story independently, I'm not trusting anyone with this. Smart, Chen approved. Trust no one. Verify everything. Jack finished the phrase, Michael's words echoing between them. We need to warn Sarah, Chen said. If Conrad's people came after me, they'll target her and Emma next. Already tried. Her communications may be compromised. Jack helped Chen toward the stairs. We need to move now, establish secure contact, and develop a counter strategy before the board meeting. As they descended, Chen asked the question Jack had been avoiding. If Horasan was about the Phoenix fragments all along, what really happened to Michael? Jack's jaw tightened. The memories surged like a physical wave. Gunfire explosions, the frantic radio calls, Michael's final order. Get our men out, that's an order, Jack. I don't know, he admitted finally. Not all of it. Hayes says Michael sacrificed himself to protect the technology to keep it out of enemy hands. The words felt hollow, insufficient. I was extracting wounded team members. By the time I got back to the compound, it was too late. Chen seemed to sense the weight of guilt behind his words. Michael always said sacrifice was meaningless, unless it protected something worthwhile. She paused at the foot of the stair, steadying herself. He believed Phoenix could change the world, create unbreakable security for people who needed protection from surveillance, oppression, corporate overreach. Worth dying for, Jack asked softly. He thought so. Chen's voice was equally quiet. The question is, what would he want us to do now? The answer came to Jack with absolute clarity. Protect his family. secure his legacy, stop Conrad. Outside, the eastern sky was beginning to lighten the false dawn that preceded true morning. Time was running short. In a few hours, the Morgan Technologies board would convene, and Conrad would make his move against Sarah. Jack helped Chen into his car, vigilant for surveillance. As they pulled away from the curb, he outlined his plan, such as it was. They needed a secure location, communications equipment, and medical supplies. Then they would establish contact with Sarah, verify her situation, and coordinate a counteroffensive before the board meeting. I know someone who can help, Jack said, turning toward the industrial district. An old teammate who owes me a favor. He runs a private security firm now, off the books, no questions asked. Chen nodded, her face pale but determined. And if Sarah's been compromised, if Conrad already has her and Emma, Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then we implement the dead man's switch. Burn Phoenix to the ground before Conrad can weaponize it. Michael would approve, Chen said softly. He always said the technology was less important than the people it was meant to protect. As they drove through the awakening city, Jack's mind returned to his last conversation with Michael before Horizon. They'd been checking equipment, the rest of the team already loaded in the transport. If anything happens to me, Jack, take care of them. Sarah, Emma, they're everything. Nothing's going to happen to you, Mike. We go in, we get the prototype, we get out. Standard op. Michael had looked at him, then a strange intensity in his eyes. Just promise me, brother. No matter what goes down, you protect my family. You know I will. But save the deathbed drama for when we're actually dying, okay? Michael had laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. Fair enough. Just remember, trust no one. Verify everything. 5 years later, those words guided Jack through the most dangerous mission of his life. Not for country this time, but for a promise made to a friend. For a debt that could never truly be repaid. The compass in his pocket seemed to grow heavier with each passing mile. The industrial warehouse looked abandoned, its exterior weathered and unremarkable among dozens of similar structures. But Jack noted the discreet security cameras, the reinforced entry points, the clear sight lines from multiple vantage points, defensive architecture disguised as urban decay. He parked in an adjacent lot, scanning for surveillance before helping Chen from the car. Her color had improved slightly, but the makeshift bandage was soaked through. She needed proper medical attention soon. Jack approached the side entrance, positioning Chen behind him as he knocked 3 short, too long a pattern from another lifetime. Seconds passed, then the sound of multiple locks disengaging. The door opened to reveal a mountain of a man's shaved head gleaming under fluorescent light, arms corded with muscle and tattoos. His impassive expression broke into a wide grin at the sight of Jack. Miller, you ugly bastard! The man engulfed Jack in a brief, powerful embrace before stepping back to assess him. You look like shit. Thanks, Decker. You're as charming as ever. Jack gestured to Chen. She needs medical attention. Gunshot wound through and through left shoulder. Decker's demeanor shifted instantly to professional efficiency. Get her inside. He spoke into a wrist-mounted communicator. Tango Med Bay, GSW non-critical, full security protocols. The interior of the warehouse belied its exterior, a state-of-the-art operations center hummed with technology and purpose. Monitors displayed security feeds, communications systems, and what appeared to be active operations in multiple locations. Personnel moved with military precision, acknowledging Jack with nods of recognition. Decker led them to a small medical suite where a woman in scrubs waited. This is Dr. Reeves, former combat medic, now our resident patch-up artist. She'll take care of your friend. As Dr. Reeves attended to Chen, Decker guided Jack to a secure briefing room, closing the door behind them. So, Decker folded massive arms across his chest. What kind of shitstorm have you walked into this time? Jack gave him the condensed version, his position at Morgan Technologies, Conrad's corporate espionage, the Phoenix technology, and the escalation to armed pursuit. He omitted Hayes the compass and the specifics of Khorasan, sharing only what Decker needed to understand the immediate threat. Decker listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When Jack finished, he let out a low whistle. Corporate black ops with military hardware. Ballsy. Decker leaned forward. What do you need? Secure communications, medical supplies, tactical gear if you can spare it. Jack hesitated. And a team on standby. This might get complicated fast. Already complicated if they're shooting at you. Decker stood. Communications room is yours. I'll gear you up and put a four-man team on alert status. He paused at the door. One condition, Miller. Name it. You tell me what this is really about. Decker's eyes were shrewd. The unredacted version. Because you didn't come to me just for a burner phone and some bandages. Jack held his former teammate's gaze. Decker had saved his life twice in Afghanistan, had been one of the few who stood by him after the Khorasan inquiry. If anyone had earned trust, it was him. It's about Michael Morgan, Jack said finally. About finishing what he started in Khorasan and keeping a promise I made 5 years ago. Understanding dawned in Decker's eyes. The ghost that's been haunting you. He nodded once. Whatever you need, brother. No questions asked. After Decker left, Jack accessed the secure communications system, inputting the emergency contact protocol he'd established with Sarah during their contingency planning. Triple encrypted, routed through multiple anonymous servers designed to be untraceable, even if Morgan Technologies' systems were compromised. The message was simple: verify status. Compass secure. Chen compromised, but stable. Await instructions. While waiting for a response, Jack checked on Chen. Dr. Reeves had properly cleaned, stitched, and bandaged the wound, administering antibiotics and pain management. She'll need rest, but the wound was clean, Reeves reported. No major vessels or nerves damaged. Lucky. Chen, sitting upright on the examination table, looked pale but alert. Luck had nothing to do with it. I ducked. Jack smiled despite himself. Good to see you're feeling better. Good enough to help take down Conrad, Chen affirmed. Please tell me you have a plan that doesn't involve more people shooting at us. Working on it, Jack showed her the message he had sent Sarah. We need to confirm her status first, then coordinate our approach before the board meeting. What time is the meeting scheduled? 9 a.m. Jack checked his watch. Less than 4 hours from now. Chen frowned. Even if we establish contact, what can we do? Conrad has board support armed operatives and potentially access to Morgan Technologies' security systems. We have the Compass fragment, Jack countered, and Hayes claims to have another. If we can secure those and confirm Sarah and Emma's safety, we can activate the dead man's switch, deny Conrad the technology entirely. Scorched earth, Chen murmured. Michael would approve, but it means destroying years of work innovations that could have helped millions. Better destroyed than weaponized, Jack said firmly. The secure communication terminal chimed, indicating a response. Jack accessed the message, Chen reading over his shoulder. Status secure. Emma with me. Conrad moving faster than anticipated. Board meeting moved to 7:30 a.m. Meet at secondary location Alpha at 6:15. Bring Compass and Chen if possible. Trust no one. Jack checked the authentication code embedded in the message. It matched Sarah's personal key, one that would be nearly impossible to fake without direct access to her biometric data. Secondary location Alpha, Chen mused. The boathouse at Lake Mercer. Jack nodded. Designated fallback point if primary was compromised. Remote defensible with multiple escape routes. It could be a trap, Chen warned. Everything could be a trap. Jack straightened. But the authentication checks out, and we're running out of options and time. He returned to the briefing room where Decker waited with an array of equipment laid out on the table: tactical gear, communications, weapons. Your secure message got a response, Decker reported. Authentication protocols verified. We need transport to Lake Mercer, Jack said, examining the tactical vest Decker had provided. And that team on standby. Decker nodded. Already prepping. ETA 4, ready status is 20 minutes. He gestured to the equipment. Take what you need. The Glock is clean, untraceable. The vest will stop most small arms fire. Jack began gearing up the familiar routine of preparing for a mission, settling his mind. Check weapon, secure extra magazines, test communications, arrange medical supplies for quick access. The muscle memory from countless operations guided his hands. One more thing, Decker said, placing a small metal case on the table. Thought you might need this. Jack opened the case to find a tactical sidearm he recognized immediately, a custom-modified MK-23 with suppressor attachments. His weapon from Special Forces days. How did you kept it after you left service? Decker said simply. Figured you might want it back someday. The weapon felt right in Jack's hand, an extension of himself from another life. He checked it methodically, muscle memory guiding each movement. Thank you. The words were inadequate for the gesture's significance. Decker clasped his shoulder. Bring it back when you're done, preferably with you still attached to it. 20 minutes later, Jack and Chen were in a nondescript SUV headed toward Lake Mercer. Dawn painted the sky in streaks of pink and gold, the city giving way to suburbs, then to the wooded areas surrounding the lake. Chen sat silently beside him, the tactical vest Decker had provided looking oversized on her slender frame. You know how to use that? Jack asked, nodding to the compact pistol she held. Michael taught me, said everyone involved with Phoenix should know basic self-defense. Chen checked the weapon with surprising competence. Never thought I'd need to use it. With luck, you won't today either. The lake came into view, its surface mist shrouded in the early morning light. Jack followed the access road to a secluded area where several private boathouses dotted the shoreline. Sarah's, or rather a shell company's, was the third structure, a modest wooden building with a small dock extending into the water. Jack parked 100 yards away, concealing the vehicle in a stand of trees. Stay here until I verify it's clear, he instructed Chen. Like hell, she replied calmly. We go together. Michael's rule: never split the team when entering an unknown situation. Jack recognized the stubborn set of her jaw, so reminiscent of Michael himself. Fine, but stay behind me, and if anything feels wrong, run like hell. I know the drill. They approached cautiously, Jack scanning for surveillance traps or signs of hostile presence. Nothing obvious, but the hairs on the back of his neck stood at attention. The small parking area beside the boathouse held a single vehicle, the black SUV Jack recognized as Sarah's private transportation. The boathouse door was closed, no lights visible within. Jack positioned Chen at his six, covering their rear approach, while he moved to the side of the building. 3 light taps on the window, the prearranged signal. Silence. Jack tried again, tension mounting. Nothing. He tried the door handle. Unlocked. Warning bells clanged in his mind. Drawing his sidearm, Jack pushed the door open carefully, staying clear of the potential line of fire. Sarah, it's Jack! No response. With practiced efficiency, Jack entered in a low combat stance, weapon ready, eyes adjusting to the dimness within. The boathouse was sparsely furnished, a small sitting area, kitchenette, and doors leading presumably to sleeping quarters in the boat slip. Motion to his right. Jack pivoted, weapon raised. Stand down, Miller. Sarah Morgan emerged from the hallway, her own pistol held steadily at her side. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze remained sharp and focused. Where's Chen? Covering the rear. Jack lowered his weapon slightly but didn't holster it. Where's Emma? Sleeping back bedroom. Sarah's posture remained tense. Show me the compass. Jack studied her carefully. First, verify something only you would know. The name of the stuffed rabbit Emma carries. A flicker of approval crossed Sarah's face. Captain Hoppy, missing his left eye because he was brave in a battle, according to Emma. She nodded toward his pocket. The compass, Jack. Jack reached slowly into his pocket, producing Michael's compass. Sarah's eyes fixed on it with an intensity that confirmed its significance. May I? She asked. Jack hesitated, then handed it to her. Sarah examined it carefully, fingers tracing the worn metal before returning it. Keep it secure, she said. It's one of the keys. So Hayes was telling the truth, Jack murmured. Sarah's expression sharpened. Hayes contacted you. When Jack gave her the condensed version of his parking garage encounter with their former commanding officer, Hayes's revelations about Corazon and his claim to possess another fragment, Sarah listened intently, her expression growing more troubled with each detail. Hayes disappeared after the Corazon inquiry. Michael always believed he was forced out to silence him about what really happened. And what did really happen? Jack asked directly. Hayes claims the mission objective was accomplished, that Michael sacrificed himself to protect Phoenix. Sarah's gaze turned inward, remembering. Michael knew the risks when he volunteered, said someone had to verify the technology hadn't been compromised, had to identify who was trying to acquire it. Her eyes refocused on Jack. He trusted Hayes, and he trusted you to get the team out if things went wrong. The old guilt surged again. I left him behind. You followed orders, Sarah corrected firmly. Michael's orders. He knew exactly what he was doing. She holstered her weapon. We can discuss Coruscant later. Right now we need to focus on Conrad and the board meeting. Jack signaled Chen to enter. As she joined them, Sarah assessed her condition with a sharp eye. You're injured. I'll live, Chen replied simply. Conrad's team paid me a visit, asked about the fragments, mentioned Hayes specifically. Sarah nodded grimly. They've been systematically eliminating anyone connected to Phoenix's original architecture. 3 of Michael's former team members have died in accidents over the past year. How did Conrad find them? Jack asked. The project was classified, compartmentalized. Someone gave us access to Michael's personal files, Sarah said bitterly. Someone with highest level clearance. The implication hung in the air. Only a handful of people had such access, Sarah herself, perhaps the head of security, and potentially board members with special clearance. Inside job, Chen concluded, beyond Conrad. We need to assume the entire executive team is compromised, Sarah agreed. That's why I've moved the board meeting earlier, less time for Conrad to consolidate his position. What's your plan? Jack asked. Sarah moved to the kitchenette, retrieving a laptop from a hidden compartment beneath the sink. Conrad expects me to walk into that board meeting unprepared to be blindsided by his vote of no confidence. Instead, I'll present this. She opened the laptop displaying financial records, communications, and surveillance photos, a comprehensive dossier on Conrad's activities. Evidence of his collusion with external parties to steal proprietary technology, Sarah explained. Not enough to have him arrested, but more than enough to force the board to remove him, especially when coupled with Chen's testimony about the security breaches. Jack studied the evidence. He'll have countermeasures in place. People ready to discredit this information. Which is why we need the fragments, Sarah confirmed. If we can prove the Phoenix architecture has been compromised and that Conrad is responsible, the board will have no choice but to act. And if they don't, Chen asked quietly. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we activate the dead man's switch. Burn it all down before Conrad can weaponize Michael's legacy. A small voice from the hallway interrupted them. Mommy, who are you talking to? All 3 adults turned to see Emma standing in the doorway. Captain Hoppy clutched to her chest, hair tousled from sleep. Her eyes widened when she saw Jack. Sandwich man! She rushed forward, stopping just short of Jack, suddenly shy. Jack knelt to her level the way he always did with Alex. Hey there, Emma. Remember me? She nodded solemnly. You knew my daddy, and you have sad eyes. Jack smiled gently. Not so sad today. It's good to see you. Emma turned to Chen, studying her with the direct curiosity only children possess. You're hurt. Does it hurt a lot? Chen's expression softened. Not too bad. Your dad taught me to be brave. Like Captain Hoppy, Emma said seriously, holding up her rabbit for inspection. He got hurt in a battle too. Sarah moved to her daughter, placing protective hands on her shoulders. Emma, sweetheart, why don't you get dressed? We need to leave soon. Are we going home? Emma asked hopefully. Not yet, sweetie. We have a stop to make first. Sarah guided her daughter back toward the bedroom. I'll help you find your clothes. When they were gone, Jack turned to Chen. Hayes said Emma is a secondary access point for Phoenix. Biometric verification linked to Michael's DNA. Chen nodded grimly. It was meant as a safeguard, ensuring the technology remained within the family's control if anything happened to Sarah. Michael never anticipated it becoming a vulnerability. Conrad knows, Jack stated rather than asked. Must do, Chen confirmed. It would explain why he's been having Emma watched why her school, coincidentally, hired a new security guard last month. Jack's tactical mind processed the implications. We can't bring her to the board meeting. Too exposed, too many unknown variables. Agreed, Chen said. But she can't stay here either. Once Conrad realizes we've gone off-grid, this will be one of the first places he checks. We need a secure location, someone trustworthy to protect her. Jack thought of Alex safely at home with Mrs. Abernathy, unaware of the danger surrounding his father. I know a place, but we need to move now before the board meeting preparations begin. A soft noise from the hallway drew their attention. Sarah returned, her expression grim. Emma's getting dressed, she said quietly. Jack, I need you to take her somewhere safe. Conrad's people will be watching the building, my home, all known locations. She can't be anywhere associated with me or Morgan Technologies. I have a place in mind, Jack assured her. But what about you and Chen Conrad will have security in place for the board meeting people loyal to him? I still have allies within the company, Sarah replied. The head of security owes me his career. He'll ensure we can access the building and the boardroom. And the dead man's switch, Chen asked. If things go wrong, we need to be prepared to activate it. Sarah's eyes hardened with resolve. I've prepared the protocols. If Conrad moves against us, if there's any indication Emma is in danger, I'll trigger it myself. She turned to Jack, but I need the compass to complete the sequence. Jack hesitated, his hand moving instinctively to his pocket. You're sure? Michael entrusted it to you for safekeeping. Now I'm asking you to trust me to use it as he intended. Sarah held out her hand. Please, Jack. It's the only way to ensure Phoenix stays protected. The moment stretched between them, laden with unspoken history, with promises made and kept. Finally, Jack removed the compass, its weight familiar in his palm. He placed it in Sarah's outstretched hand, feeling as if he were surrendering a part of himself. Michael would want you to have it, he said quietly. Sarah's fingers closed around the compass, her composure slipping momentarily. Thank you. She tucked it securely into an inner pocket of her jacket. Now let's get Emma to safety, then end this. Once and for all. The sun had fully risen by the time Jack pulled into the small parking lot of Riverdale Elementary School. The building was quiet, most students not due to arrive for another hour. Emma sat in the back seat, Captain Hoppy clutched to her chest, watching the unfamiliar surroundings with wary curiosity. Is this where I'm going to hide? She asked. Jack smiled reassuringly in the rear-view mirror. Not hide, just visit. I have a friend here who's going to look after you while your mom takes care of some important business. Is it because of the bad people? Emma's directness was disarming. The ones Mommy's worried about? Jack turned in his seat to face her. Your mom's very brave, Emma. Like your dad was. She's making sure those people can't take what doesn't belong to them. Emma nodded solemnly. Daddy always said taking things that aren't yours is wrong, even if you really, really want them. Your dad was a smart man. Jack checked his watch, 6:45 a.m. Sarah and Chen would be approaching Morgan Technologies, now implementing the first phase of their plan. Come on, let's go meet my friend. He helped Emma from the car, scanning the surroundings for any sign of surveillance or threat. The school grounds appeared normal, empty at this early hour, except for a few teachers' cars in the staff parking area. Jack led Emma to a side entrance, using his keycard to access the building. He called ahead, arranging everything during the drive from the lake. Now he guided Emma through quiet hallways to a classroom near the back of the building. The door opened before they reached it, revealing Mrs. Abernathy's kind, weathered face. The elderly woman who had been Jack's neighbor and Alex's occasional caretaker for 3 years smiled warmly at Emma. Well, hello there, young lady. You must be Emma. I've heard so much about you. She knelt despite her arthritis, extending a hand. I'm Mrs. Abernathy. I'm a friend of Jack's, and I have a special guest waiting to meet you. Emma looked questioningly at Jack, who nodded encouragement. She took Mrs. Abernathy's hand tentatively. Is it another grown-up? She asked. Mrs. Abernathy chuckled. No, dear. It's Alex, Jack's son. He's about your age, and he's very excited to have a friend visit this morning before school starts. Emma's eyes widened with interest. Jack has a little boy, too. I sure do, Jack confirmed, and he's been wanting to meet you. Inside the classroom, Alex sat at a small table coloring intently. He looked up as they entered, his face brightening at the sight of his father. Dad. He rushed over, throwing his arms around Jack's waist. Mrs. A said you had a surprise. Is this her? He peered curiously at Emma. Jack ruffled his son's hair affectionately. Alex, this is Emma. Emma, this is my son, Alex. The children regarded each other with the direct assessment only kids can manage. Then Alex spotted Captain Hoppy. Cool rabbit, he said appreciatively. What happened to his eye? He lost it being brave in a battle, Emma explained, her reserve melting slightly. Awesome, Alex said with genuine admiration. Want to see my dinosaur drawing? It's a T-Rex with laser eyes. Just like that, the connection was made. Emma followed Alex to the table, Captain Hoppy tucked securely under one arm. Jack moved to Mrs. Abernathy, speaking quietly. Thank you for doing this. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Nonsense, the older woman said warmly. Alex has been wanting a play date for ages, and any friend of yours is a friend of mine. Her kind eyes grew serious. Is everything all right, Jack? You look troubled. Just work complications, Jack assured him. I should be back by normal pickup time, but if anything changes, I'll call. Mrs. Abernathy patted his arm. Don't you worry about these two. We'll have a wonderful morning together. Jack approached the children's table, kneeling beside Emma. I have to go help your mom now, Emma, but Mrs. Abernathy and Alex will take good care of you until we come back. Emma looked up from the dinosaur drawing, her expression suddenly serious beyond her years. Are you going to fight the bad people? Jack considered his answer carefully. I'm going to make sure they don't take what isn't theirs, just like your dad would want. Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised him by wrapping small arms around his neck in a quick hug. Be careful, she whispered. Mommy needs you to come back. The simple statement hit Jack with unexpected force. He returned the hug gently. I will. I promise. As he stood to leave, Alex caught his hand. Dad, is everything okay? Jack saw the worry in his son's eyes, the perceptiveness that sometimes startled him. Everything's fine, buddy. Just helping a friend with a problem at work. Like you helped Mr. Rodriguez when his car wouldn't start. Jack smiled, touched by his son's attempt to understand. Something like that. Bigger problem. Same idea. Okay, Alex seemed satisfied. I'll take care of Emma till you get back. I know you will. Jack hugged his son quickly. Be good for Mrs. Abernathy. I'll see you this afternoon. As Jack left the classroom, he glanced back one more time. The children were already bent over the drawing together, Emma pointing to something on the page, Alex nodding enthusiastically. In that moment, they were just kids, untouched by the shadows of corporate espionage, classified technology, or parents' legacies. Jack would do everything in his power to keep it that way. Morgan Technologies loomed against the morning sky, its glass facade reflecting the sunrise in sheets of gold and amber. Jack parked in a service area 2 blocks away, using the maintenance access he'd memorized during his time with the company. Sarah's text had been brief but clear. Proceed to server room via maintenance corridors. Chen and I entering through executive elevator. Meet 7:15. Jack moved through the building's hidden arteries, service corridors, maintenance shafts, utility rooms, invisible as always to the corporate world on the other side of the walls. His tactical vest was concealed beneath a maintenance uniform, his sidearms secured in a shoulder holster, extra magazines distributed in accessible pockets. The server room occupied a significant portion of the building's third sub-basement, a fortress of climate-controlled technology secured by multiple layers of biometric authentication. Jack approached via the maintenance access tunnel, using the override codes Sarah had provided to bypass the initial security checkpoints. At the final door, he paused, assessing. The security panel showed active, no signs of tampering. He entered the override sequence, waited for the confirming beep, then slipped inside. The server room hummed with the sound of powerful computing systems, racks of equipment extending in orderly rows throughout the space. In the center, a glass-enclosed control station served as the nerve center for the entire operation. Chen was already there, her injured shoulder immobilized in a proper medical, sling fingers flying across a specialized keyboard. Sarah stood beside her, tense and vigilant, the compass open on the console before them. Right on time, Sarah acknowledged as Jack joined them. Chen's accessing the Phoenix architecture now. We need to verify the fragment's status before the board meeting. Any sign of Conrad or his security team? Jack asked, positioning himself to monitor the server room entrance. Not yet, but security logged him entering the building 20 minutes ago. Sarah's expression was grim. He's gathering his allies, preparing for the confrontation. Chen looked up from her work. I've accessed the core architecture. The system registers 3 fragments as potentially compromised, too secure. She pointed to a schematic on the screen. Michael's failsafe is still intact, but there are signs someone's been probing it, testing for vulnerabilities. Conrad, Sarah confirmed. How long before the board meeting? 12 minutes, Jack reported. Are we ready? Sarah nodded toward the compass. Almost. Chen needs to integrate the fragment from the compass into the failsafe protocol. Then, if necessary, we can trigger the dead man's switch remotely during the meeting. Chen carefully opened the compass's casing, revealing a tiny storage device embedded within. Michael, you brilliant paranoid man, she murmured, with grudging admiration as she extracted the device. This will take a few minutes to integrate. As Chen worked, Sarah moved closer to Jack, her voice low. Emma, she's secure. With Alex and my neighbor at his school, Conrad has no way to connect them to me. Jack kept his eyes on the entrance. She was brave, worried about you. A flicker of emotion crossed Sarah's face. When this is over, I'm taking her away for a while. Somewhere without board meetings, corporate politics, or her father's ghost hanging over everything. She'll like that, Jack said. She needs her mother more than she needs her father's legacy. Sarah studied him thoughtfully. And what about you, Jack? What will you do when this is over? The question caught him off guard. For 5 years, Jack had lived day to day focused on survival, on providing for Alex, on managing the guilt and memories of Corson. The future had always been a vague concept, something to endure rather than plan for. I haven't thought that far ahead, he admitted. You should, Sarah said quietly. Michael would want you to live, not just exist. She hesitated. Alex deserves a father who isn't haunted by the past. Before Jack could respond, Chen interrupted. It's done. The compass fragment is integrated. The failsafe is primed and ready. Sarah straightened, CEO mask sliding into place. Excellent. Transfer the activation protocol to my secure device. If Conrad makes his move during the meeting, I'll trigger it remotely. Chen completed the transfer, then looked up at Sarah. What about Hayes? If he really has another fragment, shouldn't we try to contact him? Too risky, Sarah decided. For all we know, Conrad has him already. We proceed with what we have. She checked her watch. It's time. The board will be assembling now. Jack assessed their options. I'll take point, clear the route to the boardroom. Chen stays here to monitor systems and provide technical backup. Sarah makes the presentation. Sarah nodded agreement. If anything goes wrong, if Conrad has more support than we anticipated, I'll activate the failsafe. Phoenix will be erased rather than compromised. And Conrad, Chen asked, will be exposed, removed, and prosecuted, Sarah said firmly, for corporate espionage, at minimum potentially treason if we can prove foreign involvement. Jack wasn't so sure it would be that clean. Men like Conrad with resources and connections rarely faced full consequences for their actions. But that was a problem for later. Right now, they needed to focus on the immediate threat. Let's move, he said, checking his weapon discreetly. Stay behind me, maintain distance in case we're separated. They exited the server room, Jack leading the way through the maintenance corridors toward the executive level. As they approached the transition point to the main building, Jack's combat instincts registered a change in the environment, subtle but unmistakable. Wait, he whispered, halting their progress. Something's wrong. Sarah tensed beside him. What is it? Jack listened intently, years of battlefield awareness guiding his senses. The building's too quiet. Executive floor should be busy with staff arriving, preparation for the board meeting. I'm not hearing normal activity. He eased forward to the access door, carefully checking the corridor beyond through the small security window. The executive floor appeared deserted, no assistants at their desks, no security personnel at their stations. Empty. Trap, Jack concluded, drawing back. Conrad's cleared the floor, probably isolated the board members, already controlled the environment. Sarah's expression hardened. We need another approach. Maintenance elevator to the roof, Jack decided, then down the executive stairwell. Less predictable than coming up from below. They backtracked rapidly, taking a service elevator to the building's roof level. The morning air was cool and clear, the city spread before them in a panorama of urban geometry. Jack led them across to the executive access door, using Sarah's security credentials to bypass the alarm. The stairwell was silent, emergency lighting casting everything in a dim red glow. They descended quickly, Jack in the lead, or following closely, both alert for any sign of Conrad's security team. 2 floors down, Jack halted abruptly, raising a hand for silence. Voices below approaching their position. He signaled Sarah back up several steps, positioning himself at the turn of the stairwell. 2 men in tactical gear rounded the corner, weapons at ready position, private security, not regular Morgan Technologies personnel. Jack moved before they registered his presence, disarming the first with a practiced combat maneuver, using the man's momentum to send him crashing into his companion. Both went down in a tangle of limbs and equipment. Jack secured them efficiently, zip ties from his tactical vest binding wrists and ankles, communications devices disabled. The entire encounter had taken less than 20 seconds and occurred in near silence. Conrad's people, Sarah confirmed, examining their identification. Not regular building security. He's got the board meeting locked down, Jack concluded. These two were probably sweeping for any approach they hadn't covered. Sarah checked her watch. The meeting started 3 minutes ago. Conrad will be making his move now. We need to hurry, Jack agreed, relieving the incapacitated guards of their weapons and spare magazines. Stay close. They continued down the stairwell to the executive level. Jack eased the door open, checking the corridor. Still deserted, but now he could hear voices from the boardroom at the far end raised in what sounded like heated discussion. Jack led Sarah along the wall using the minimal cover provided by office doorways and furniture. As they neared the boardroom, the voices became clearer. Irresponsible absence proves my point. Conrad was saying, his tone reasonable but firm. Sarah Morgan's leadership has become increasingly erratic, her decision-making questionable at best. The Phoenix Project delays, the security breaches, the unauthorized personnel additions, all symptoms of a deeper problem. James, this is highly irregular, another voice objected, an older man, likely one of the senior board members. A vote of no confidence should include the CEO's presence to defend herself. I invited her, Conrad replied smoothly. The fact that she's chosen not to attend speaks volumes. Now, as I was saying, the documentation before you outlines numerous instances of mismanagement under Sarah's leadership, culminating in the security breach last month that potentially compromised our most valuable intellectual property. Jack and Sarah reached the boardroom doors. Through the narrow window, Jack could see Conrad standing at the head of the table, board members seated around it, expressions ranging from concern to openly hostile. 4 security personnel, Conrad's private team, positioned at strategic points around the room. Jack assessed the situation rapidly. 4 armed guards, unknown loyalties among board members, Conrad controlling the narrative. Direct confrontation is high risk. Sarah nodded grimly. We need leverage. She removed a small device from her pocket at the fail-safe trigger Chen had prepared. If necessary, I'll activate it, but I'd rather expose Conrad than destroy Phoenix. Jack thought quickly, tactical options unfolding in his mind. The security feed. If we can access it, broadcast Conrad's actual activities to the board in real time, the evidence you've gathered, Chen's testimony about the security breaches. Sarah's eyes lit with understanding. The executive media system. It overrides all presentations when activated by the CEO authentication. Can you trigger it remotely? Sarah nodded. My office terminal has direct access, but Conrad will have someone watching it. Leave that to me, Jack said. Get to your office, prepare the evidence broadcast. I'll clear the way and provide distraction. With a plan established, they separated, Sarah moving toward her office via an alternate route, Jack continuing toward the boardroom. He needed to create a diversion, something to draw attention and security resources away from Sarah's office long enough for her to access the media system. Jack reached the small utility closet adjacent to the boardroom, accessing the environmental controls for the executive floor. With a few quick adjustments, he triggered the fire suppression system in the corridor outside the boardroom, not the full sprinklers, just enough smoke detection alarm to demand attention. The effect was immediate. Alarms blared, emergency lights flashed, and the boardroom door burst open as security personnel emerged to investigate. Conrad's voice rose above the chaos, ordering his team to secure the floor check for intruders. Jack slipped away in the confusion, circling around to approach Sarah's office from the opposite direction. As expected, one of Conrad's security team stood guard outside her door. The man was alert, weapon ready, scanning the corridor for threats. Jack moved silently, using the alarm's distraction to close distance. When he was within range, he struck quick, efficient movements honed through years of close-quarters combat training. The guard was unconscious before he registered the threat, secured with zip ties and concealed inside the office. Sarah was already at her terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard. 2 minutes, she reported without looking up. The system's preparing the broadcast override. Jack secured the office door, positioning himself to defend the entrance. Conrad's team will realize what's happening soon. We need to be ready for their response. Almost there, Sarah murmured, focused intently on her work. Compiling evidence files, preparing broadcast sequence. Jack's earpiece crackled. Chen from the server room. Security systems showing multiple armed personnel converging on the executive floor. They've realized something's wrong. How many? Jack demanded. At least 8 heat signatures moving with tactical formation. Military training, not standard security. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. 8 trained operatives against Jack, alone with Sarah, vulnerable during the broadcast. Sarah status 30 seconds to broadcast, she replied tensely. Once it starts, it can't be stopped except from this terminal. Jack made a tactical decision. Chen prepared to activate the failsafe. If we lose contact for more than 2 minutes, trigger it. Understood, Chen confirmed. Failsafe ready, but Jack, the biometric confirmation requires Sarah or Emma. We'll handle that, Jack assured her. Just be ready. Sarah looked up sharply. You're planning for failure. I'm ensuring the mission succeeds regardless of obstacles, Jack corrected. Phoenix protected Conrad, exposed Emma safe. Those are the objectives. Before Sarah could respond, the terminal chimed. Broadcast ready, she announced, fingers poised over the activation key. This will override all executive-level displays, including the boardroom presentation system. Yeah, Jack nodded. Do it. Sarah pressed the key. On monitors throughout the executive floor, including the massive display in the boardroom, Conrad's carefully crafted presentation disappeared, replaced by damning evidence of his activities. Financial transactions with known technology, brokers, security, override, authorizations, surveillance photos of meetings with foreign operatives. Through the office window, Jack could see the boardroom eruption into chaos. Conrad's face contorted with rage and disbelief as he realized what was happening. Board members rose from their seats, pointing at the evidence displayed before them, demanding explanations. It's working, Sarah said, a grim satisfaction in her voice. They're seeing the truth. But Conrad wasn't finished. He shouted orders to his security team, pointing toward the executive offices. Jack saw 4 men break away, moving with a tactical precision toward their position. We've got company, he warned, drawing his sidearm. 4 operatives armed approaching fast. Sarah's hand moved to her own weapon. The broadcast will continue automatically. We need to hold this position for 3 more minutes for the full evidence package to display. Jack made a quick tactical assessment. Office is indefensible against 4 trained operatives. We need to move, draw them away from the terminal. If we leave, they'll shut down the broadcast, Sarah objected. Not if they can't find us, Jack countered, moving to the office's inner door. Executive passage to the conference room. We can circle behind them, approach the boardroom from the opposite direction. Conrad's the target, neutralize him, and his team loses direction. Sarah hesitated only briefly before nodding agreement. Lead the way. They slipped through the executive passage, a private corridor connecting the CEO's office to various conference rooms, designed for discreet movement between meetings. Jack moved with practiced stealth, Sarah following his lead. Behind them, they heard the office door burst open, Conrad's team discovering the empty room, the broadcasting terminal. Angry voices, orders shouted into communications devices. Jack led Sarah through the passage to a small conference room adjacent to the boardroom. From here, they could enter directly, bypassing the corridor where Conrad's remaining security waited. Ready? Jack asked, hand on the door. Sarah checked her weapon, eyes steady. Ready. Jack opened the door and they entered the boardroom from the side entrance. The scene inside was one of controlled chaos, board members arguing heatedly, the evidence broadcast still playing on the main display, Conrad gesturing emphatically as he tried to regain control of the situation. This is clearly fabricated, Conrad was shouting, desperation edging his voice. Morgan is attempting to frame me rather than accept responsibility for her own failures. It's not fabricated, James, Sarah announced, clearly stepping into full view. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Every document, every transaction, every communication is authenticated and verifiable. Conrad's expression shifted from shock to calculated menace. Sarah, how convenient of you to finally join us. Just in time to witness your removal as CEO. That won't be happening today, Sarah replied calmly. The board has seen the evidence of your activities. Your attempts to steal Phoenix technology, your collusion with foreign interests, your systematic undermining of company security. The board chairman, an elderly man with steel gray hair, stood. These are serious allegations, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Conrad claims they're fabricated. They can be verified independently, Sarah assured him. My technical team is standing by to provide authentication protocols for every piece of evidence presented. Jack remained near the entrance, monitoring the situation, aware that Conrad's security team would be converging on their position. The clock was ticking. Conrad seemed to realize his position was weakening. His hand moved subtly toward his jacket. The real question, he said smoothly, is why Sarah has become so paranoid, so willing to manufacture evidence against her most loyal executive. His fingers slipped inside his jacket. Perhaps it's the pressure of leadership, or perhaps it's something more personal. Jack recognized the movement instantly, the telltale preparation to draw a concealed weapon. He moved without hesitation, closing the distance to Conrad in 3 rapid strides. "Gun!" Jack shouted, tackling Conrad just as the man pulled a small pistol from his jacket. The weapon discharged once the bullet striking the ceiling as Jack and Conrad crashed to the floor. Board members scattered in panic, some diving under the table, others rushing for the exits. Jack subdued Conrad with practiced efficiency, disarming him and securing his wrist behind his back. "Stay down," he ordered, the command carrying the unmistakable authority of military training. The boardroom doors burst open as Conrad's security team rushed in, weapons drawn. They hesitated at the chaotic scene, Conrad restrained on the floor, Jack positioned protectively, Sarah standing firm beside the evidence display. "Stand down," Sarah commanded. "Building security is on the way. Anyone still armed when they arrive will be considered hostile and treated accordingly." The security team wavered, looking to Conrad for direction. But with their employer subdued and the evidence of his activities broadcast for all to see, their resolve faltered. The board chairman had regained his composure, his voice cutting through the tension. "Lower your weapons immediately. This is still a Morgan Technologies facility, and I am still chairman of this board." The authority in his voice tipped the balance. One by one, Conrad's security team lowered their weapons, realizing their position was untenable. Jack maintained his position, keeping Conrad secured, as building security finally arrived, alerted by the gunshot and responding board members. The private security team was quickly disarmed and detained, the situation brought under control. As Conrad was hauled to his feet by building security, he locked eyes with Jack. "This isn't over, Miller," he hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, what forces you've provoked." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Jack replied evenly. "The same people who were waiting in Coruscant. Tell your employers they failed." Again. A flicker of surprise crossed Conrad's face before he was led away. Sarah approached, her composure intact despite the chaos around them. "The board needs to convene an emergency session," she said, addressing the chairman. "We need to assess the full extent of the breach, implement countermeasures, and prepare for potential legal and security implications." The chairman nodded gravely. "Agreed. And Ms. Morgan, it appears we owe you an apology for entertaining Conrad's allegations. The evidence is quite compelling." "Save the apologies for after we've secured the company," Sarah replied briskly. "Jack, we need to check in with Chen, verify Phoenix's status." As the board members regrouped and building security established order, Jack and Sarah slipped away to a private office. Jack activated his secure comlink. "Chen status report." "All clear at the server level," Chen reported, relief evident in her voice. "Conrad's access has been revoked, his team's credentials purged from the system. Phoenix architecture is secure, no signs of successful extraction." Sarah visibly relaxed at this news. "And the fragments?" "Secure, the compass fragment has been fully integrated into the failsafe. If anyone attempts unauthorized access now, the entire system will self-destruct and alert all remaining fragment holders." Jack nodded approval. "Good work. Stay in position until building security has cleared all floors. We'll come to you." After ending the communication, Jack turned to Sarah. "Conrad's in custody, but this isn't over. He mentioned employers. Whoever backed his operation won't simply abandon the technology." "I know," Sarah acknowledged, "but we've bought time-protected Phoenix for now." She hesitated. "We should check on Emma." Jack had already been thinking the same thing. He pulled out his phone, dialing Mrs. Abernathy's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm and reassuring. "Everything's fine here, Jack. The children are having a wonderful time. Emma's teaching Alex some game with her rabbit, and they've barely noticed I'm in the room." Relief washed through Jack. "Thank you. We'll be there soon." After ending the call, he nodded to Sarah. "They're safe together." Something softened in Sarah's expression. "Emma and Alex, Michael would have liked that." She moved to the window, looking out over the city. 5 years ago, he made you promise to protect us if anything happened to him. Today, you fulfilled that promise." "The mission isn't complete," Jack cautioned. "Conrad's just one piece of a larger operation. Whoever was behind Coruscant is still out there, still interested in Phoenix. Then we'll be ready for them, Sarah said with quiet determination. Michael built Phoenix to protect people, not to control them. I won't let his legacy become a weapon. Jack studied her profile, seeing for the first time not just the CEO, not Michael's widow, but Sarah Morgan herself. Strong, resilient, determined to protect what mattered most. What happens now? He asked. Sarah turned to face him. Now we pick up our children. We take them somewhere safe while the legal and security teams do their work. She hesitated. And then we talk about the future, about what comes next. For Phoenix. For all of us, Sarah clarified. Emma, Alex, you, me. She met his gaze directly. 5 years is a long time to live in the shadow of the past, Jack. Maybe it's time we both stepped into the light. The words resonated with unexpected depth. For 5 years, Jack had existed rather than lived, focused on survival and obligation rather than possibility. The future had always been something to endure, not embrace. But standing here now, mission accomplished, promise fulfilled, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced since before Horasan, a sense of purpose beyond mere survival, beyond guilt and obligation. One step at a time, he said finally. First we secure Phoenix, then we make sure the children are safe. He paused. After that, we'll see. Sarah smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her features, revealing the woman behind the CEO facade. Michael always said you were the cautious one, always planning 3 moves ahead. He was the optimist. Jack acknowledged memories of his friend rising without the usual accompanying pain. Always certain things would work out for the best. Maybe this time he was right, Sarah suggested. She moved toward the door. Come on, there are 2 children waiting for us, and I've kept my daughter waiting long enough. As they left the office together, Jack felt the compass's absence from his pocket, a physical reminder of obligations fulfilled, promises kept. For 5 years, he had carried it as a talisman of guilt and failure. Now integrated into Phoenix's protection, it served its true purpose, safeguarding Michael's legacy for the future. Some debts could never be fully repaid, but perhaps they could be honored in ways that allowed for new beginnings, new promises, new life. Jack followed Sarah toward the elevator, toward the children, toward whatever came next. One step at a time, the silent oath finally fulfilled.